to this virtual WES INWED celebration. So pleased to see so many people have joined us today. This is a fantastic day to celebrate women in engineers globally. First, a quick introduction. My name is Alex Knight. I am one of the hosts of the event today, and I am going to be co-hosting with my fellow trustee Jay Surtee, who'll be hosting the second part of the event. So I can see that you did a little poll when you joined today, when you entered the event. So I can see that the polls come up again there. So you should be able to click about what you're excited about today. And I can see that, wow, lots of people saying they're very excited about learning more how to shape the world. And majority of people saying they are very excited about all of the above. So that's fantastic. We're going to have our WES president, Dawn Childs, kicking off the event for us today. But before I introduce Dawn, I want to do a couple of housekeeping rules for everybody. Just a quick check. Now, this is the first time we've done a big virtual event like this, so bear with us. Just a quick check in the chat here that I've got with the presenters that people can hear me okay, because it's saying on my screen that I've got microphone problems. So just if someone in the chat from the WES staff side who are doing an absolutely brilliant job behind the scenes, that's perfect. Okay, thank you very much. So a couple of housekeeping rules before we start. Now, there's a lot of people here on this event today, so everybody's microphones and cameras are disabled so that you can just focus on those that are presenting. You should be able to see that you've got a chat box, and in the if you've got any sort of technical questions at all, then put those in the private chat. In the public chat, please put any positive comments about today, how you're feeling, what you're doing to celebrate. And you should also have a Q&A box, which is your opportunity to ask any questions directly to our fantastic speakers today. So we have our amazing WES president, Dawn Childs, who will be followed by our CEO in WES, Elizabeth Donnelly. So it gives me great pleasure to hand over to our president, Dawn Childs. Over to you. Thanks, Dawn.
Thank you very much, Alex. Hopefully you can hear me. Could you give me a thumbs up, Alex? I can still see you if you can hear me. Yes, perfect. Thank you. Well, hello, everybody. It gives me such pleasure to be able to open up this event. And I have to say, these things don't happen by chance. And every year, I'm always amazed and stunned at the amount of support that we get for this fabulous event that was put together originally by Dawn Bonfield, one of the past presidents of the Women's Engineering Society. And I think year on year, we're getting more and more entrants into our Women Engineer of the Year categories. And of course, this year, our focus was sustainability to help us shape the world. So that's fabulous. And thank you so much to our wonderful trustee, Sally Sudworth, and all of her fellow judges who had the absolutely unenviable task of going through the plethora of the allocations that we had and all of the submissions. It's truly stunning and very inspirational. Also, I think our partnership with UNESCO throughout this year has been fantastic to try and help us to bring this together. And of course, we wouldn't be able to bring these events to you without some really great sponsors. And this year, we've been really, really stumped by the amount of sponsorship that we had, and just the willingness to try and engage with this fantastic subject for not only women in engineering, but also sustainability. So in particular, Boeing, Dialog Semiconductors, ECITB, GCHQ, the Institute of Refrigeration, Mercedes, AMG Petronas, NSIRC, Opito, the Royal Academy of Engineering, the Royal Air Force, which is of course close to my heart, Synetics, V12 Footwear, and Wiley. So thank you so much to all of those. And I really do hope that this first of these very large virtual events that we've pulled together will be really interesting for you, and that you'll get out of today as much inspiration as we did in putting together all of the judging and all of the candidates. So please bear with us if we have any little gremlins within the platform. I'm sure we won't. And Joe and Jackie and the rest of the staff and Elizabeth and the team have been working so hard to bring this together for you. So I can only hand on to them, and I hope you have a really great day, and many congratulations to all the winners. So I'll now hand over to Elizabeth, because I have a feeling my camera isn't working too well. So Elizabeth, please take us through the fantastic history of the Women's Engineering Society and the awards today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. Just to let you know, everyone, we are now trending, INWED 20 is trending second on Twitter in the UK. And we have a potential reach of 25.9 million, up from 10 million at 9:30. So it's very exciting. And thank you all for everything that you've done. And thank you for Dawn for your support. And we're just getting the presentation up here. And here we go. So during the First World War, 1.5 million women received training to work in factories at a cost to the government of £30 million, which is the equivalent to £1.6 billion in 2019. But after the war, the Restoration of Pre-War Practices Act in 1919 effectively barred women from working in manufacturing, just as women were given the vote, allowed to become MPs, lawyers, and civil servants. And the parliamentary debate on the Restoration of Pre-War Practices Act in early June 2019 promised that this would not be the case, and argued that in some cases pre-war practices had not existed, and therefore that women would not be banned from the workplace. However, it was not to be. Women were banned, and our second president and one of our founders, the Honourable Lady Catherine Parsons, said, "It has been a strange perversion of women's sphere to make them work at producing the elements of war and destruction, and to deny them the privilege of fashioning the munitions of peace." What was also obvious was that although the women were prepared for the men to come back from the war, many women themselves were in a position where their husbands and fathers and brothers and fiancés had also not returned from the war, and they needed to make a living themselves. Catherine continued, "The women who work so hard to win the freedom of the world may not have freedom at home to engage in an industry where the wages are promising. It is fully acknowledged that men will not go back to pre-war conditions. They must have shorter hours, more leisure, more wages. But as for women, they are merely told to go back to what they were doing before, regardless of the fact that, like men, they now have a higher standard of life, that they also wish to have their economic independence and freedom to make their way without any artificial restrictions." And so the Women's Engineering Society was founded. And here you have an image of 3 of our founders, Laurianne Wilson, Caroline Hazlitt, and Margaret Partridge. The original objects of the society, formed on the 23rd of June 1919, was to promote the training and employment of women in engineering and allied trades, to work for the admission of women to all schools of engineering and technical colleges, to give special attention to the future of women who have attained some degree of skill in the engineering and allied trades and professions and who wish to continue their work, to work for the admission of women to membership of all suitable institutes of engineers, and to enable technical women to meet and to correspond, and to facilitate the interchange of ideas respecting openings in the various branches of technical and mechanical science by the circulating of information on such subjects. I'm delighted to say that all women are now able to be admitted to all schools of engineering and technical colleges, and all women are now able to be admitted to membership at all the institutes of engineers. But what's interesting is that we're still continuing to promote the training of and employment of women in engineering and the allied trades. We're still giving special attention to the future of women who've attained a skill in engineering, and we still enable technical women to meet and correspond and facilitate the interchange of ideas, even if today that is by webinar. So Laurie-Anne Wilson was the first woman member of the Federation of House Builders, building 72 homes for workers in Halifax. She was one of the founders of the Electrical Association for Women in 1924, and her housing estates had the latest gas and electricity appliances. And there, like many of the women of her time, she's wearing a rather splendid fur coat. Margaret Partridge set up her own electrical power supply company with her partner, Margaret Rowbottom. Beatrice Shilling was her most successful apprentice, and she changed the International Labour Organization Convention on night work for women. Beatrice was caught working late at night in Margaret's factory and was reported to the International Labour Organization. And the Wares were brilliant in persuading the convention that basically it was an outdated regulation. Beatrice Shilling has to be one of my favourite of our predecessors. In the 1930s, she raced motorbikes. She was awarded the Gold Star for lapping the Brooklyn Circuit at 106 miles an hour, that's 171 kilometres an hour, on her Norton M30, and allegedly refused to marry her husband George until he'd done the same. During the battles of France and of Britain in 1940, RAF pilots discovered a serious problem in the Hurricane and Spitfire planes. When the plane went nose down into a dive, negative G-force would flood the engine's carburettor, causing the engine to stall. German fighters used fuel injection engines and did not have this problem. So in action, a German fighter could evade a pursuing RAF fighter by flying a negative G maneuver, which the RAF plane could not follow. Shilling devised the RAE restrictor to solve this problem. It was a brass thimble with a hole in the middle, later simplified to be a flat washer, which could be fitted into the engine's carburettor without taking the aircraft out of service. By March 1941, she'd led a small team on a tour of RAF fighter stations, installing the devices in their Merlin engines. The restrictor was immensely popular with pilots who affectionately named it Miss Shilling's Orifice, or simply the Tilly Orifice. And it continued in use as a stopgap until the introduction of the pressure carburettor in 1943. Beatrice is also responsible for clearing snow from runways. She established that the Munich air crash that killed some of the Busby Babes in 1958 was due to increased drag from slush on the runway rather than pilot error, though the pilot himself wasn't cleared for another 10 years. Jeannie Dix managed the first permanent electrification of Winchester Cathedral. She laid the electric cables while installing the central heating pipes and insisted on maintenance men going up into the roof while she was in the nave to see the best form of lighting, including lighting behind windows. It required removal and reburying of loads of coffins, except Jane Austen, who was moved gently to one side. And as an estimate of how powerful that contract was, it cost £3,000, which today would be £500,000. Professor Daphne Jackson, another former president, was a nuclear physicist. She was a champion of women returners. Imagine a society that would allow Marie Curie to stack shelves in a supermarket, she said, simply because she took a career break for family reasons. And her legacy is the Daphne Jackson Trust, which gives bursaries to women returning from career breaks so that they can return into STEM careers. Karen Burt was a scientific satellite engineer, and she established the Centre for Advanced Instrumentation Systems at UCL. She campaigned for career breaks as well, but sadly died at the age of 42 of a stroke. And we are delighted that our most prestigious award is for the best newly chartered female engineer and is given in her name, and every year that winner gives a lecture for us. We're hoping that we will be able to hold the lecture this year, but it's possible it might be another webinar. And more recently, Dr. Caroline Hargrove built the McLaren simulator, which gave Kimi Raikkonen pole position and victory over Alonso in the first Turkish Grand Prix by 18.609 seconds. Montoya, who came third, came in at 19.635 seconds behind Raikkonen. So you can see the absolute advantage that the simulator gave. She went on to build McLaren Applied Technologies from 3 to 500 staff and is now involved with Babylon Healthcare. And women are still at the forefront of engineering and WES. Sue Bird, instrumental in establishing INWED, the International Women in Engineering Society. Petra Grattan established Mentorset, our mentoring programme. Dawn Fitt, OBE, established our Apprentices Conference. Dawn Bonfield founded NWED, National Women in Engineering Day, and is, in fact, as we can see, trending at 25.9 million today, is a fantastic achievement. Benita Mera, the first woman of colour to be WES president, and moved National Women in Engineering Day to International Women in Engineering Day with the approval and patronage of UNESCO. And Dawn Childs, our current president, the first woman engineer in many RAF posts and the first female head of engineering at a major international airport. So look how far we've come, from being banned from the workplace in 1919, and now we're shaping the world in 2020. Women in engineering continuing to inspire. So if you want to know more, we have a WES Centenary YouTube channel that we launched this week, and the link is there. And we've also got an online wikithon tomorrow for extraordinary women in engineering from 1:30 to 3:30, and it's on Eventbrite. If you search for extraordinary women in engineering, you will find the event there. And we do hope that you'll get involved in getting to know much more about the hundreds of women who've gone before us and those still to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. That was a fantastic presentation. It's so important that we see those role models, those women that have come before us that have absolutely changed the world for us today. We don't see enough of them, so it's great to celebrate them. I'm happy to take any questions from the audience. So if you want to put any questions you've got for Elizabeth in the Q&A section, because we've got a few minutes before we're going to try and show you our INWED video. So while people are looking at putting some questions in that Q&A box, I've got a question for you, Elizabeth.
Okay.
I'd like to know, as obviously a WES trustee and a huge fan of WES, WES has impacted my life in such a positive way as a woman in engineering. What is your favourite thing about being the CEO of WES?
I've got lots of favourite things, but actually my most favourite thing is being one of the first people to know who the We 50 winners are. And I've known since the end of May, and I've had to keep it secret, and it's been really exciting.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's a huge privilege. Brilliant. And also, just to bring up that point about trending on Twitter, we are doing so well on Twitter. It's amazing the potential reach that we've got there. So just a reminder to everybody, please keep tweeting #ShapeTheWorld and #INWED20, and let's keep trending as much as we can on Twitter.
Okay. My Twitter feed doesn't let me see exactly how many tweets we have, but the one at number 4 has got 31,000 tweets, and we're at number 2 still.
Fantastic. Okay, so we've got some good questions coming in. So there's a question here. If there was one piece of advice you'd give to budding female engineers, what would that be? Good question.
Don't let anything stop you, because there will be people who stop you, and they do it because they don't think that you can do it, but you can. And they'll tell you that it's hard, and they'll tell you that women don't belong. And I will tell you that you look at those women who had much greater obstacles than we had 100 years ago, and they've done it. And I think if you really, really want to be an engineer, then you should go for it.
Absolutely. Another question here we've got from Sarah Jolliffe. Who inspires you the most, Elizabeth?
Oh, well, I've got lots of women in history who inspire me, and most of my favourites you've seen. But actually, who inspires me the most are all these fantastic young women who come through. And every time I go to a WES event, when we've been allowed to be present, you know, they're young women, they've all shapes and sizes, from all ethnicities and religions, and they're just so enthusiastic. And I get really inspired by that, because I think that our future is going to be really, really safe with these wonderful women who are going to shape the world.
Absolutely fantastic. Got a question here from Beth Murray. I presume she's talking about the women in your presentation. Did the women face any discrimination?
Oh yes, Beatrice Schilling was one of two women to first go to Manchester to study for engineering, and she found a great deal of difficulty getting there. And part of what WES was formed for was to say to which schools were accepting women. And Beatrice was criticised, as I said, for working at night. And so WES took on the case and beat the International Labour Organization. You can see a lot of this in our journals, which are in the IET archive. I think also with Jeannie Dix, there was a certain amount of fascination that this young woman who ran this company would be able to do it. But it was also that she'd formed it with her husband. So I think that they wondered if he was really the driving force. And of course, women were told that they weren't ladylike and that they weren't. It wasn't the kind of thing to do, and they should go back to the kitchen, as I'm sure we still get today. But also, it was only in 1969 that I think 0.5% of all engineers were women, which was a tiny amount. So there were really, really just a handful. And now it's 12.3%, which is not brilliant, but is a lot better. And we're hoping that it will improve soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. And we've got another question from Jan saying, what are the next big challenges for WES in shaping the future? Great question.
Yes. Well, the next big challenge is finding a hashtag for next year, because we've had transform the future and shape the world. One of the challenges is going to be how are we going to meet in a post-COVID-19 world, because we can't have our student conference this year. And partly that's because the students won't be in, and partly because of social distancing. And it will be interesting to see how the world changes in the future. But also what we have learned through some of our effective working through online distancing and through webinars is that we can reach a lot more people. So we are looking at how we can integrate some kind of webinar, or digital process within our events in the future.
Yeah. And we've got an important question here from Bethany Hall. What is WES doing to tackle intersectionality, particularly in support of the Black Lives Matter movement?
Yeah, we're absolutely committed to supporting Black Lives Matter. We have already given over our Twitter feed last week to the Association for Black Engineers. There's an event going on as we speak where I was invited as a leader in women in engineering to take an early career engineer, and we invited Mimi. We have, I'm pleased to say, a number of Black and minority ethnic women in our We50, I'm hoping you'll see. We're going to be celebrating Black women engineers during Black History Month in October, including Benita Mera, who, as I said, is the first woman of colour to be one of our presidents. I'm also instigating a directors committee on inclusion, which will cover all of the protected characteristics, so that we can ensure that whatever your situation, whether you're disabled or older or younger, or you're Black or gay, or you're a trans woman, or whether you have a disability, that you will be included in everything that we do. I'm absolutely committed to this. I've been a lifelong supporter and advocate for diversity inclusion, and this is one of my big challenges for next year.
Thank you. Yeah, really important. And I have to say, I was very inspired by the very quick response from WES to the Black Lives Matter movement recently. That was great to see your support. And we've got a lovely comment here from Jo Parker saying it's 50 years since she joined the Women's Engineering Society, and they've supported her the whole way. She said she thinks she joined as a schoolgirl, she thinks. So that's absolutely fantastic. Thanks for that comment, Jo. We've got another question, which is possibly the last question we can take before we show our video, which is from Sarah Jolliffe. What, in your opinion, would be a better measure of success than the widely used proportional gender splits?
Well, There is already a better measure of success, and that's the gender pay gap. And if you go to the Royal Academy of Engineering website and search for gender pay gap, you'll discover that if you are a woman in engineering, you are as likely to earn as much as the man sitting next to you, given that you're at the same level of education and position in the firm. And overall, the pay gap is about 10% compared to a UK pay gap of 18%. We just need more of us there.
Absolutely. So we're going to try and show our WES video. So I'm going to stay on the screen and just check while our hardworking WES staff behind the scenes set the video up for us. Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for your fantastic come through, which is fantastic to see. So keep posting the questions and we will do our best to keep getting around to answering those as and when we can. So hopefully it looks like we're going to be able to look at our video. So I'm just going to stop talking for a second and hand over to the WES staff to play that video now. Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the video.
Happy Women in Engineering Day. My name is Abu Bundu Kamara. I'm the Global Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Lead at Boeing. Now, I frequently get asked this question as to why International Women in Engineering Day is so important. For me, it is so simple. Whilst women have made tremendous effort within the engineering profession, they are still underrepresented within that industry. At Boeing, we have supported International Women in Engineering Day now for a number of years, and we continue to see a steady growth in the number of women who join our engineering function. But what's even more significant for me is the number of women in our talent pipeline who join our graduate program. Everything we do at Boeing has a goal and a positive, sustainable impact across our businesses and across the world. So I hope you will have a fantastic International Women in Engineering Day, and I wish you all the best.
The ECICB are delighted to be supporting International Women in Engineering Day and to celebrate all the female talent currently working in engineering construction. Having a diverse and inclusive workforce makes sound business sense. It means better ideas, greater innovation, and that transforms into higher performing companies. Much of the industry is going through a really tough time at the moment, but there's an opportunity to transform this industry and do things differently as we emerge from this crisis. And this is particularly important in an industry where fewer than 1 in 8 of the workforce is female. So, it is up to us now to bring more women into engineering, to develop those currently in the industry to progress so that we have a wider pool of talent, not just to emerge from this crisis, but also to take us forward as we move towards net zero.
Hi, I'm Amy. I work as a powertrain dyno test engineer at Mercedes. During lockdown, I worked at Penlon to support the Ventilator Challenge UK. This involved testing and signing off ventilators before they were released to the NHS. As part of my normal job at Mercedes, I test and sign off powertrain components before they're released to the track. Both of these jobs requires attention to detail to ensure that the components are reliable for their purpose. I'm very proud to have been able to support the NHS during this difficult time.
At Synedics, we harness the power of the sun to build a bright future. We are fully committed to sustainable growth and our role as a social citizen, ensuring our solar plants have a long-term positive impact. An essential part of this commitment is our strong support of diversity and inclusion in the solar sector, and today we celebrate the important role of our engineer women at Synedics and around the world. The future is solar, and we're doing everything in our power to get there sooner.
I think it's really important to keep raising the profile of women in engineering, and INWED are fantastic at providing the opportunity for individuals to promote their abilities and achievements. At V12, we encourage, promote and educate not only our customers but the wider community on the importance of correctly fitted PPE for women in a hope that one day it is the norm and easily accessible. Sustainability development goals are extremely important, especially for future generations. They allow us to meet the needs of today without compromising our tomorrow.
Hello, I'm Tanya.
Hi，大家好，我係 Eva。
Hi, my name's Beth Williams.
Hi, I'm Sindhu Nair.
Steve, Ivaniger Husandon.
Hi, my name is Roxanne Degar.
Hi, I'm Gillian.
Hello, my name is Kirsty.
My name is Carol Lappin and I'm a chartered civil engineer.
Hi, my name is Lindsay McNeely.
Salut, mon nom c'est Stina Sven-Watson.
Hi, my name's Eleanor Kentish and I'm a civil engineer for KIR.
Hello, my name is Annie and I'm a project engineer for BP.
Hello, my name is Charlotte.
Hello， 我係 Cecilia， 我而家喺香港政府運輸處做緊交通工程師。
Hello, my name is Sif Amir Adasi from Indonesia.
Hi, my name is Georgia Thompson and I am a civil engineer.
Hi, I'm Ivy Kong. I am the Chief Executive Officer in WSP in Asia.
That was an absolutely fantastic video. Thank you so much to the WES team who put that video together. That was just inspirational. I can feel the energy in the room, our virtual room here, all the fantastic positive comments that are coming through on the public chat there. So thank you so much, everybody, for really engaging in this event and just making it such a positive moment to celebrate women in engineering today. So we are going to move on to the next part of our session today. Just double checking on the chat here with my team backstage, because I think we'll move straight on to the next bit, or are you still hoping that we should have a quick pause? Because I think we're doing really well for time. So if everybody's happy with that, I think we'll move straight on to Sally's next presentation. So what I want to do is introduce our next speaker, who is Sally Sudworth. She is our Honorary WES Secretary and National Programme Manager for Asset Management and Sustainability in the Environment Agency. Sally is an absolutely brilliant, inspirational engineer that I love working with as part of WES. She does fantastic work, amazing involvement with lots of different charities, an absolute role model and inspiration to us all. She is a sustainability lead head judge for the WE 50. So I'm going to now hand over to Sally Sudworth for her presentation, which is titled Net Carbon, Are You Up for the Challenge? So over to Sally's presentation, please.
Hello, everybody. My name's Sally Sudworth. I am delighted to be with you here on International Women in Engineering Day. I'm helping to shape the world for INWED 20. Are you? I have a few slides to share with you today. I'm going to set a bit of context for the climate emergency. I'm going to share with you what we're doing at the Environment Agency, and I'm also really curious about you and what you're doing in your organisation and what plans you have in place to manage the climate emergency in your role. So I'm really interested in that. I'm Sally Sudworth. I'm a civil engineer. I'm also a chartered environmentalist, and I am honorary secretary for the Women's Engineering Society, and also been really involved in preparing today. Absolutely thrilled that the theme today is sustainability. So thinking globally about the effect that global warming is having on our environment, on society, you probably are aware of the Paris Agreement, and we had over 115 countries signed up to that, which is extraordinary. But however, if all of them put into place their plan, that would get us to 3.2 degrees warming. And you're probably aware that the Paris Agreement was for 2 degrees C, and everybody was going to try their best to aim for 1.5. And we're already above 1 degree C. So far it's not looking so good. So there's a real need for us as engineers, as scientists, as environmentalists to play our part to make a real difference. So our thinking definitely needs to change quicker than the environment. And of course, there is no planet B. We have finite resources. That is clear to people, but we have such a consumer-led society. Interesting, the impact of COVID-19 on retail, etc. So we're sort of resetting things a little, aren't we, as a result of that? But yeah, in the developed world, certainly we consume huge resources just about going about our everyday business. And I've got a couple of quotes here. This is Emma Howard Boyd. She's the chair for the Environment Agency, and really quite passionate about this and saying we're really going to make a difference in terms of the way we plan and invest, getting that right, and then looking at the operational and engineering sides, following on from that. So that's fantastic. She's a real supporter of WES as well. So really pleased to see this from Emma. And then Sir James Bevan, he's our chief exec, and he leads with this comment: "It's not as bad as you think. It's worse. It's worse than that. Come on, everybody. Pull your fingers out." And I think generally that there has been a change. There's been a change in opinion, and there's certainly more pull now rather than the push. I've been working on this agenda with a number of professionals for a couple of decades, really, and been hammering on people's doors and trying to convince people other than those who are in the sort of small coalition of the willing, as it were. But people are interested now. So this slide, I saw this introduced on World Environment Day. We're very familiar with COVID-19 and the way we were trying to flatten the curve so that the consequences of the impact of the virus, we were giving the National Health Service that opportunity to respond and manage the numbers. And I heard the same approach given to the climate emergency, where we were trying to encourage people to take action now, and that would have the effect we were trying to encourage people to take action now, and that would have the effect of making the consequences that future generations, our children's children, are going to have to deal with, not us, but our future generations, taking action now so that they will have half a chance of managing the impacts, which could be quite extreme in terms of increasing sea level rise. And you've probably all heard about the world cities. Nearly all of them live around the coast and are likely to be impacted quite severely. So, I mean, that's a whole other hour's lecture at least, isn't it? Or if not a whole day, in terms of thinking about the consequences of the climate emergency. I'm not going to try and do that today. So here it is, a call to action. Really excited today. We're launching the Climate Emergency Group. I've got the backing of all of the trustees for the Women's Engineering Society, and there's an invitation to you to join the Climate Emergency Group, and I'm hoping that you all, as being really interested and passionate about sustainability, will be interested in joining that. I see WES as being really quite unique because we're a multidisciplinary organisation. As a civil engineer, I'm on the task force for the Institution of Civil Engineers. I'm on the climate change group for the Institute of Asset Managers, but they're very specific, very specialised in what they're considering. And our USP in WES is that we are truly multidisciplinary, and I see us as having a really fascinating opportunity to share knowledge and to be able to influence the sectors and that we work in, and our clients, our employers, in quite a unique way. And I'm keen to provide a platform for the voice of WES so that we can, as professionals, use that to best effect and share that knowledge, because we have to work in partnership to be able to make this work. And not making it work really isn't an option. So please do get in touch. So just a couple of slides here about the legislative drivers. I'm sure you're all aware we've got the Climate Change Act. We had the Paris Agreement, where we agreed to look to achieve net zero by 2050. Then we had Parliament declaring state of emergency, and that Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change report that was in October 2018, so a year and a half ago already, where they were saying that if we act now, we might be able to stay on track, but this is 18 months later and time is of the essence. And even now I hear people, when we're talking about the 2030 target, saying, oh, we got 10 years, it's fine, no need to panic. I'm thinking, no, that's absolutely not the case. We don't need to panic, no, for sure. We need to have confidence in our abilities as engineers, as professionals, but we do need to change the way we approach our work today and start to understand and build on that. So we've got the government commitment to net zero. I took part in one of the marches in Manchester, was blown away with the leadership that was shown by the school children, the teenagers, and was really encouraged by that. And then as a civil engineer working in construction, working in asset management, and infrastructure, we've got the PAS 2080 document, which if you're not familiar with it, it does give a really good sort of general framework for understanding what you can do, where you are in terms of your maturity as an organisation, and what you might do to improve on that. So it's quite it could be adapted to any discipline. And then we have our construction strategy, and we had that stepping stone of trying to achieve 50% reduction by 2025. All of these have got slightly different baselines, by the way. So I did end up writing a paper for my organisation just to try and get my head around exactly what we were supposed to be doing by when. So that's available if anybody wants to see it. But we are committed to achieving net zero by 2030 and absolute zero by 2050. That's what I'm all about with my role at the moment. So I've got a couple of slides here just setting out what we're doing at the Environment Agency, and as I said earlier, really interested in hearing about what you're doing in your organisation so we can compare. We're an asset management organisation, very much have many coast and river structures to manage water levels both up and down, because we're making sure that for our pumping, for example, that we support water supply as well as flood risk management. And we've got our great barriers like the Thames Barrier, the Foss Barrier, Boston Barrier, which is a new one that's just coming online. There's one that's been considered at Bridgewater. So there's all of these sort of mica, mechanical and electrical gates and barriers that we need to operate to. So quite a mix right across England. There's Natural Resources Wales, have their own organisation to manage assets in Wales. So that's the area that I'm interested in. And sorry about that. You can see the pie charts here. The takeaway, I think I've shared this with a number of you already, but these pie charts, the takeaway from this is that if you can see on the pie chart on the left-hand side, we've got the direct footprint is 23%, which means that 77% of our carbon emissions that we generate as a business, it's outside our organisation. So it's really clear that we can't crack this on our own. We have to work in partnership with all of our suppliers and our partners in doing this. But it also, in doing this analysis of our top 100 suppliers, it helped us understand where our hotspots are, where we're going to get that, from that 80-20 rule, where we need to put in the effort to get the best return. And so that's been my starting point for asset management as an engineer. And then this graph shows our programs of investment, taking us up to 2050. So we've got these epochs that are in the blue boxes, and then we've got the target reduction with the red star at 2050. And the dotted line shows what the 80%, the original, what the Climate Change Act stipulates originally. At the moment, we're just about to embark from April next year on a new capital programme. I think in terms of the what it's going to look like in terms of the activity is going to be quite similar really to what we've done before, except that we'll be improving the way that we're delivering, always striving to do that. But I think by the time we get towards 2050, the look and feel of how we deliver flood risk management is it's got to be really quite different. And I've got some ideas about what that might look like, which I'll share with you just in a moment. So that's our investment profile, as it were. So that sets up the challenge that we're facing. And the current capital programme has a value of 2.6 billion, and the new one, the settlement that we've had from government, is 5.2 billion. So we're already looking to double the size of our construction programme, but looking to reduce our carbon emissions at the same time. So setting our heads, scratching our heads, and setting our brains to trying to unravel that puzzle. So this is what I'm focusing on. That's eating up my my time at the moment, all of my time and energy, and my colleagues. It's the net zero carbon strategy and program. Nearly there. I've just got to finalise the final draft of the strategy this week, which is quite exciting. And then I'll be taking that to the board next month for approval. But I've not done this on my own. We've got a whole host of work streams, and you can see on the slide here all the different sorts of people that that will be involved and that are being involved in formulating the strategy and the plan. So recognizing it's about people, culture, behaviors, training, making sure everybody's carbon literate and sustainability literate, making the right decisions and on making the data and information accessible so that they can make informed decisions, looking at how we invest, making sure carbon is on the table, that we have clear minimum technical requirements in that regard, and that the decisions around investment aren't all about money, that it's about carbon and sustainability at the same time. And then there's all of the digital aspects, making sure we've got the metrics for capturing performance and being proactive in managing all of our assets. We're also thinking about policy. What are the policies that are there that are really getting in the way, really not helping in terms of moving forward in this brave new way? Also thinking it's not just flood and coast assets, but we have fisheries, navigation assets as well. So it's all assets that we're considering. Then when we've done absolutely everything that we can within our power to minimise our carbon emissions, then we'll be looking to offset the residual, and we'll be doing that at a corporate level. So we've got mini plans under each of those work streams, and I've been knitting those together. So this is our emission plan, emission 2030. You'll recognise, I'm sure, the sustainable development goals here. And there's four main areas that we're looking at: net zero carbon, social value, really important, recognising that we've got things like the National Health Service writing green prescriptions, valuing the environment, recognising the health benefits and the amenity benefits of the environment. Environmental net gain, looking at diversity and habitat, water quality, looking at all of the framework directives and applying those rules, even with EU exit, applying those really high standards to our environment. And then the circular economy, which is around recycle. So very much looking at deconstructibility. So beginning with the end in mind, making sure that things are designed so that we have those modular pieces that can be very easily and highly efficiently reused for other purposes. So yeah, really exciting program, and lots happening under that. And now I have just a couple of slides to share our ambition, really. What's the world going to look like in the future? We're going to be very much reliant on new technology, remote sensing networks, looking at, I don't know who of you are working on asset management, but there are assets now where they actually do their own self-diagnostics and are self-healing, and also can send automatic reports so that you can make interventions by teams to carry out repairs. So I see more and more of that happening in the future. You can see in the middle of the screen here a floating solar array. So our ambition is to take as many of, if not all of our assets off grid and to use renewable energy, either solar or wind or hydropower, to be able to take our assets off grid. So a real mix of using technology to be able to allow us to do that. Also looking at our fleet using potential hydrogen as fuel. Our fleet is electric already, and we're moving all of the lease cars that aren't already hybrids or electric are moving to that place. And also we've got people in our field teams, guys and girls, whose job it is to work with remote pieces of kit. So they've got mini motor mowers, and they've got drones as well. So for our waste reg work, they're out there flying the drones. So it really is guys and girls with their toys. I think they have the best the best time with their work. But I think we're going to be using more and more of that sort of technology, which is quite exciting. I don't think many people know that we do that sort of thing in the Environment Agency. Maybe we'd attract even more applicants if that were the case. And then this is my last slide, which is around natural flood management. Considering natural capital, I've already mentioned the green prescriptions, but really valuing the environment and appreciating and doing what we can to on biodiversity and habitat creation. Also working at a catchment level to make sure that we have that balanced solution, not just the engineering, but the natural flood management solution as well, looking at upland management, the potential peat bog creation, obviously planting trees, but wetland creation as well. And there already exists. I said right at the start about how integrated infrastructure and working in partnership is going to be key. On the bottom left-hand side of the screen, you can see a floating community that already exists in Holland, in Amsterdam, and there they have units there that obviously aren't impacted by the rise and fall of water levels. I think potentially just dreaming of what life will be like in 2050, where we'd have completely independent units for dwellings, for businesses that will be self-sufficient in terms of energy, waste recycling, water harvesting, all of those sorts of things. So that technology and engineering exists now, but it's making best use of it. And then obviously cycling, we've seen with COVID, it's been remarkable, hasn't it, with the drop in traffic and how cycling is now more popular. And Manchester has certainly jumped on the bandwagon and has closed a number of streets and extended their cycle lanes, which was all part of their plan anyway, but it's allowed them to bring all of that forward. But a big challenge is that 80% of the build that already exists today is in place. The new build, I think, is less of a challenge because we can control the specifications that we work to, but it's the retrofit, the adaptation that we're going to have for climate change for the 80% of domestic properties and commercial properties that already exist in the world. How are we going to address climate change, which is another fascinating, challenging part of the picture. So thank you very much. That's the end of my talk. As I say, I've shared with you today what I'm doing at the Environment
So I think thank you very much, Sally, for that fantastic presentation. Absolutely incredible the work you're doing to address this climate emergency that we're facing right now. An enormous amount of work that you're doing. Can I just check, Sally, do we have you on the line still for any Q&A that we can have? Are you on the line for us to speak to now? Gotta love live events. So let's just see. I think we were hoping that Sally would still be able to join us for some questions. So let's just double check. No, okay. It doesn't look like she's going to be able to join us. Can I just double check? Got some comments coming in saying people have lost connection. Can anybody just put a comment in the chat to say whether you can still hear me okay? Okay, thank you very much. So some people can still hear me, but unfortunately we've lost Sally, so we won't be able to ask her live Q&A about her fantastic presentation. But what Sally has said is please put questions in the Q&A for her, and then she will be able to answer those questions at some point, maybe during the break. If not, then we'll find a way of getting answers to these questions out to people after this webinar. So thank you again, just such an inspiring and really important part of our jobs as engineers to look after our planet, improve sustainable solutions and help tackle the climate emergency. And it's one of the reasons I love being an engineer, is to help improve the world around us. And you know, all the engineers out there, particularly our We50 that have been recognized for their work in sustainability, just hats off to you. You're doing an absolutely amazing job, and where would we be without you in society? So thank you to all the women engineers out there making a difference in this part of the challenge that we're facing globally. Particularly thank you again to Sally for such a fantastic presentation. So please continue to put any questions you've got in the Q&A section. I can see loads of good questions coming through, which is fantastic. If you can try and make sure that you use the Q&A rather than the chat for your questions, it really helps us make sure that we don't miss any questions that you've got. That's very helpful. And also, on another sort of admin note, if in your box where you can see Q&A and chat, you should also see a heading called handouts. And in there, you've got the program for today and also the We50 brochure, showcasing all the fabulous women that have been selected as the winners for the We50 Awards this year on sustainability. So please have a look at that as well. Just doing a quick time check. Okay, so we're coming up to 1:10. If I can do another reminder, please, everybody keep tweeting. We really want to get as many tweets out there with hashtag INWED20 and hashtag ShapeTheWorld as possible. So keep doing that, keep pushing that today. What we're going to do is we're going to take a short break, so everyone can get a cup of tea or coffee or water, comfort break. And then we're going to come back at 1:20. And Elizabeth will be leading the We50 Awards presentation, which will be very exciting. Really looking forward to that. So please continue putting any questions you've got in the Q&A for Sally or Elizabeth or Dawn, and we will do our best to answer all of those. Keep putting all the positive comments that you're putting in the chat. Absolutely loving seeing all this positivity today coming through. Just such a buzz. It's fantastic to be a part of this. Thank you to everybody who's engaging, and we will see you back at 1:20 after you've had a quick comfort break. Look forward to seeing you again then. Thanks everybody.
Engineering is inventing,
exciting,
enlightening,
electrifying,
energizing,
fascinating.
It's about making things, creating things, putting things together.
Engineering is cooperation,
People, collaborative, working together,
inclusive,
diverse,
for everyone, different,
Productivity.
Engineering is epic,
fun, badass,
Original.
awesome.
Engineering is technical,
Solution-focused,
An art,
creativity,
curious,
vision,
innovative, influential,
inspiring,
international,
progress,
opportunities. Engineering is everything.
Engineering is our future.
engineering is everywhere, everywhere,
everywhere,
Everywhere.
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 research and rescue people in collapsed buildings.
I source synthetic materials in an environmentally conscious way.
Make agriculture more sustainable in the future.
We are working on hydrogen batteries.
Welcome everyone to the Top 50 Women in Engineering 2020. I would first of all like to let you all know that we're now trending 4th in the UK, behind Boris and pubs opening, but we've got a reach of potentially 29 million people, which is fantastic news. First of all, my thanks go to our fantastic judges for the We50, Sally Sudworth, the National Programme Manager for Asset Management and FCRM Sustainability Lead at the Environment Agency, and our head judge. Anne Kristen Anderson, Board Member at Rotalk, Chair of their ESG Committee, also CEO of 4ADA, also Board Member for Maersk Drilling, Glitre Energy and Quantifuel. Thanks to Richard Coakley, past President and Sustainability Leader at the Institute of Civil Engineers. To Andrew Conway, Head of Engineering at BAI Communications, to Louise Kingham, Chief Executive Officer at the Energy Institute, David Stronati, Global Sustainability Leader at Mott MacDonald, and Joanna Wood, Group Engineering Director at BAE Systems, who all joined me in the very, very difficult task of sifting 300 nominations for 245 women into the top 50. I would also like to give my thanks to Bob Simpson from the UK Association of Professional Engineers for their very kind donation, which has helped pay for the trophies. And now, our wonderful Top 50 Women in Engineering 2020 Sustainability. Yasmin Ali, Energy Innovation Project Manager, UK Government, Department for Business. Please do show your appreciation in the comments, chats and smileys and claps would be great, saying thank you and congratulations. Laura Bishop, Director at Infinitas Design Limited. Laura Brown, Energy Research Programme Manager, Newcastle University. Adele Carey, Senior Sustainability Engineer, Arup. Dr. Ellie Cosgrave, Lecturer in Urban Innovation and Policy, University College, London. Carla Denyer, Councillor for the Green Party, Bristol City Council. Dr. Pamela Dugdale, Engineering Teacher at the International Study Centre, Liverpool John Moores University. Rhiannon Evans, Technician at ACOM. Laura Frost, Associate, Cities and Climate Change, Arup. Ritu Garg, Senior Transport Engineer, also at Arup. Dr. Barnali Ghosh, Technical Director, Mott MacDonald. Dr. Rachel Gomez, Associate Professor, Chemical and Environmental Engineering, University of Nottingham. Professor Deborah Greaves, Head of School of Engineering, Computing and Mathematics, University of Plymouth. Professor Sandy Halliday, Director at the Gaia Group Limited. Karine Hargreaves, Associate Director, Product Sustainability, AstraZeneca. Kelly Harrison, Associate, Hain Tillett Steel. Martha Hart, Senior Consultant at Arup. Laura Hepburn, Director, Greenology. Catherine Ibbotson, Programme Carbon and Cost Manager at the Environment Agency. Michelle Johnson, Technical Director, Wood. Jennifer Kelly, Associate, Arup. Eftihiya Korsari, Civil Engineer, Amy. Claire Lavelle, Energy Consulting Leader, Scotland, Arup. Professor Claire Lucas, Associate Professor, Reader, University of Warwick, and incoming Professor in Engineering Teaching and Learning, King's College London. Dr. Joanne Lillois, Research Associate, University of Nottingham. Brogan MacDonald, Structural Engineer, Ramboll. Professor Mercedes Maroto Valer, Champion, UK Industrial Decarbonisation Research and Innovation Centre, Heriot-Watt University. Dr. Kerry Mashford, Non-Executive Director with a portfolio career. Senamiso Matobela, Delivery Manager, TNCC at National Grid UK. Vary McCann, Founder and Chief Executive Officer of Youth STEM 2030. Jill Noel, DSO Lead, Electrolink. Professor Rachel Oliver, Professor, Director of the Cambridge Centre for Gallium Nitride, CSO of Poro Technology, University of Cambridge. Joe Parker, Director at Watershed Associates. Sally Powolotsky, Low Carbon Business Development Consultant, Straight Six Design Limited. Philippa Ross, Associate Director, Atkins. Anusha Shah, Director, Resilient Cities, Arcadis. Sandra Sliheta, Head of Engineering, Vattenfall Heat, UK. Holly Smith, Civil Engineer at Skanska, UK. Chitra Srinivasan, Real-Time Control Software Engineer, United Kingdom Atomic Energy Authority. Annie Stapley, Assistant Engineer, WSP. Dr. Elisa Stratulat, Innovation Manager at Group Atlantic. Judith Sykes, Senior Director, Expedition Engineering. Dr. Petra Gilagi, Lecturer in Functional Materials, Queen Mary University of London. Dr. Elizabeth Tennyson, Marie Sklodowska-Curie Actions Fellow, University of Cambridge. Dr. Camilla Thompson, Chancellor's Fellow in Energy, University of Edinburgh. Dr. Mi Tian, Lecturer, University of Exeter. Professor Valeska Ting, Professor of Smart Nanomaterials, University of Bristol. Kusum Trikar, Senior Engineer at WSP. Jana Marie Weber, PhD Candidate, University of Cambridge. And Laura Williams, Health, Safety, Environment and Quality Advisor at Keller. Congratulations to all 50 winners of the Top 50 Women in Engineering 2020. It's so wonderful seeing so many fantastic women. Well done, everyone.
Amy? Okay, so my name is Jay Surtee and I'm going to be taking over the hosting of this event for the rest of the session. We have lots of wonderful content coming up. We have a panel discussion with some of our We50 winners, and we have a keynote presentation followed by some networking towards the end of the afternoon. As Alex has mentioned, a little bit of housekeeping. We do have the handouts in the box on the right, as well as a section for questions. So please keep posting your questions in the relevant box. Social media. Now, come on. We are trending 4th. We can do better than that. We've just had a celebration with all of our We50 winners, and I think that would be a brilliant excuse to get in there and celebrate our winners. So please use the hashtag INWED20 and let's get trending at number 1. Now let's get on to the panel discussion. We're going to have a panel session with 3 of our We50 winners. So if I can invite them to share their screens right now, and we can introduce them to you. We'll just wait for our panelists to join us. While we're waiting for them to turn their cameras on, let me introduce our three panellists. We have Dr. Ellie Cosgrave, who is a lecturer in Urban Innovation and Policy, University College London. We have Professor Claire Lucas, who is an associate professor at the University of Warwick. And we have Professor Valeska Ting, who is Professor of Smart Nanomaterials at the University of Liverpool. Hello, everybody.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I'm having some trouble.
Okay.
But I took my headphones.
Now, what I'm going to do is invite each of you to just give a short presentation, just to share a little bit about what you do in turn, and then we'll move into the panel discussion. So, Ellie, are you ready to go into your presentation?
Yeah, I'm happy to introduce myself and my work for a few minutes, if that's...
Yeah, brilliant. If you can kick us off.
Great. Well, just to say, it's just such an honor to be here and in such esteemed company. Just looking through that, watching that presentation was just great. So I'm really happy, and I hope that this can be a moment where we reconvene and maybe spark some new collaborations or new ideas or ways of working. So just so you know, I'm up for that if anyone would like to. But just to introduce myself a bit, I'm a lecturer in urban innovation and policy at UCL. So I'm a civil engineer by training, but now really work in sort of engineering policy and have and I'm looking in kind of urban design much more broadly, both in my teaching and in my research. And the way well, my doctorate was in sort of smart cities, so very much a sort of technical look at how the ways in which we can use kind of sensing technologies might impact how we want to live and be and manage urban spaces. But since I've been at UCL now for the past 7 years, I kind of moved much more into sort of thinking about questions of justice, environmental justice, and gender inclusion. And my first project as a postdoc at UCL was on the Livable Cities programme. And what we were really interested in there, kind of traditionally, when we think about engineering futures, engineering designs and livable cities, we think about utopias. We think about what should the technologies look like? What kinds of spaces do we want to make? But we were much more interested in that programme. Instead of taking that approach, what would it look like to reimagine engineering itself and engineers' mindsets and worldviews? Because we thought that was a potentially more sustainable way to bring about livable infrastructure and livable futures, and start to really kind of drill down into what is it about our engineering training, our worldviews that makes us or encourages us to produce unsustainable or unlivable places. And that's really been the core of my work over the past 7 years. And I do that in two ways. The first one is through an exploration of sort of gender and engineering, gender and the city, gender and climate action. And sort of two key projects that I've worked on were for leading the research program for the Women for Climate C40's Cities initiative. And in that, we were really looking at what is the gendered nature of climate change in cities? How does one's identity dictate how you are able to move around the city? What kinds of resources and possibilities are open to you in the first place? And that when we're thinking about climate mitigation and climate adaptation, are we adequately building in a gender lens to that work? And we were looking at how cities around the world are already doing that, but also kind of what are the tools and techniques that engineers can start to employ to be able to propagate a sort of gender-informed action. And I think one of the key challenges around that for me has always been this kind of mismatch between engineering paradigms, engineering kind of ways of deconstructing the world, understanding what's important, that we have to build a model that we can therefore optimize and make decisions around, and usually are quite a technical focus, quite pragmatic, quite practical. And how do we marry that, is my kind of key question, with feminism and with social ideas of identity and power, and political ideas around oppression and violence, that are evident in our cities, and in climate change, but that are not well incorporated or identified with sort of engineering paradigms or approaches. So I have these kind of two worlds that I feel are incredibly important to our future, but that don't sit that neatly together. And so what I'm always trying to do in my work is to find a space where those two world views, those two perspectives, can be held together, not to privilege one over the other, but to make space for both. And my critique is often that the space for the gender justice and the political justice within engineering projects is often too small. So that's kind of what I'm interested in pursuing. Do I have enough time to say another? How am I doing for time? Is that 5 minutes?
Well, I think let's get everybody else introduced, and then we can come back to incorporating the questions, if that's okay. Thank you, Ellie. Claire, are you there? Okay. Valeska? Well, while we're waiting, Ellie, why don't you continue with what you were going to say before I interrupted you, and we'll see what we can do about getting the others on the panel.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
It just popped up and said I can't be heard, but
we can hear you.
Okay, so I'll just keep talking. I can keep talking for as long as you know. Maybe we can have a conversation. So the other way that I sort of approach this work is to say, well, what other, if we're going to sort of challenge engineering paradigms and engineering worldviews, are there other disciplines that can help us understand what is possible? So often we get a lot of engineers in the room to decide how engineers should be different. And I think that actually what we need to do is leap well outside of our comfort zone or our knowledge systems to challenge it, to if we're going to be expansive. So over the past 3 years, I've been exploring ideas of choreography and urban design. I'm a dancer myself and understood very much that choreography or dance making has a lot of similar attributes to engineering projects, but they might seem very different. So on the similarities, dancers and engineers both deal with projects. They both have a kind of time limited aspirations where they're dealing with all of the things that go along with projects. They're dealing with moving bodies through space, coordinating things, and they usually have a specific purpose. But those purposes actually may be quite divergent. And they come from a different worldview, a different training. They both have trainings. they both have trainings and a worldview that's very explicit, that is taught, and that is then developed through practice over time. So I've been interested in getting those two people in a room together and discussing stuff.
That sounds absolutely fascinating.
We can maybe check in if there's anyone else here. If not, I can explain some of the experiments.
Yeah, well, at the moment, I think we're having some technical difficulties, so we're doing our very best behind the scenes to get everybody onto the panel. But this is really interesting for us to hear. So yeah, please do continue for a little bit longer.
Please, I won't be offended if we need to stop at any.
Okay.
Because I can go on.
I just wave at you.
Yeah, just be like, no. So one of the first things that we did to explore this idea of, how could the tools and techniques of dance making be appropriated, adapted, and fed into the design of our urban environments. So what we did was pair choreographers, one choreographer with one engineer. And we kind of picked on transport engineers because we thought mobility was a good place to start as a kind of intersecting point between choreography and engineering. And it was just a great opportunity as well for me to both kind of meet and interact with amazing engineers, but also kind of my dance idols. And so I was like doing a lot of blushing. I was like, anyway, so it was very exciting for me to kind of meet amazing choreographers. Anyway, we took these pairs of people out into different parts of London that we thought were interesting from a mobilities perspective. So this was, if you know London, we went to the Euston Station forecourt, which was being redeveloped at the time. We were looking at kind of areas, pedestrianised areas, and a variety of other areas. And we asked both the choreographer and the engineers 3 questions. Firstly, it was, what do you see? And we asked them to notate in the way that they would notate it. So because we were interested in how ideas are captured. So we said, yeah, so what is it that you see? The second question was, what are the possibilities for this space? So so really what we were interested in is like, what can you see could be better about this space? And then finally, we asked them to start to go about the design process. Like what are the kind of first things you think you need to put in place in order to meet your vision or aspirations for that space? And then in each of the pairs we took them back to a studio or a meeting room, and we got them to explain their ideas to one another and discuss it and what they noticed about each other's practice. And there were some really interesting insights and outcomes from that. So we were, one of the things that stuck out to me was their different understanding of what safety is. A lot of the engineers were interested in dividing the space up in order to create a feeling or to create safety. So it was very much about making sure we've got the right rail, we've got the right fences in place, and we can direct traffic in certain ways to make safety.
Yeah. Ellie, I think we might have Claire in now. Cliffhanger. Hold that thought, because I'm sure that all of our listeners will want to hear a little bit more about that later. It's absolutely fascinating. Claire, can you hear us?
I can. Are you able to hear me, more importantly?
We can hear you. Welcome.
Thank you. Sorry, everybody.
No, it's good to see you. So Ellie had an opportunity to introduce herself and share some of her work, and it's now your turn to give us a little bit of background, and then we'll move into some questions if we can't have our other panelists join us. Is that okay? You ready?
That's great. Okay. So I think I can click these slides. So I'm really excited to be able to talk to you. So I represent sustainability through gender equality, which is one of the sustainability goals. And what I work in is trying to make engineering a better educational experience for girls when they come to university. So I had a very traditional background, Oxford undergraduate, Oxford PhD, a little bit of a stint in industry. And then I've been at Warwick for 5 years, and I'm about to move to King's College in London. And as I said, what I love doing is thinking about how gender relates to the actual type of engineering that we teach and how we teach it. So curriculum and pedagogy. And there are 3 things I want to talk about today, but they're linked by thinking about group work in engineering degrees. So I'm going to tell you about 2 discouraging studies that I read, and then I'm hopefully going to encourage you by talking about what I've done about it. So when I first came to Warwick, I read this study that said that women, when they work in a group in general, so not just student women, but women in general, speak 75% less than men. And when they do speak, they're interrupted, spoken over, or does everybody know the term mansplained? So when a man re-explains what you've said in their own words and often does it incorrectly. And if we were all in a room together, I could probably imagine there'd be collective sighs and groans as people kind of acknowledge that this is their experience of working in groups. And women who are these lone voices in groups find it very difficult to influence the outcome of the decision. But the positive news about what this study found is that if you have enough women in a group together, actually they can influence the outcome. And the best bit is that they can reach a really different conclusion to what they would have reached if it had just been men in the group. And it's often framed that women will solve a different problem to what the men in a group would solve. And this is why we need diversity, right? This is why we need more female voices, more Black and ethnic minority voices, more neurodiverse voices within the people making decisions about engineering. And the big change about having lots of women working together is that when women speak, most of what they say is something encouraging or positive or affirming of another woman in the group, which I love. I think that is the culture that I want to work in. So the next study was specific to engineering undergraduate degrees. And it, again, was very sad that this Professor Susan Silby at MIT discovered that that women were put off so much by working in a group as part of their undergraduate degree that they never even wanted to become engineers afterwards. So women weren't graduating, becoming engineers because of their experience specifically of group work in an undergraduate engineering degree. And as somebody who has to teach these students and set up this group work, I think that was a real motivator to me to change what we were doing. And something they found was that when women are doing group work as an undergraduate, programming, soldering the electronics, or whatever it is that was considered technical. And again, I'm wondering if this is resonating with people who've done an engineering undergraduate degree maybe in the UK. So the third thing we found, though, is that you can, if you get enough women in a group, but also if you give them purpose, that this can really change their experience of engineering degrees. And that means giving them an authentic task that they care about. And this is really where the Sustainable Development Goals kind of enter into our curriculum. Because if we give people authentic tasks built around systemic issues, which require systems thinking to solve, this is where women really thrive in decision-making groups and in engineering education. And we have created this kind of group work throughout our degree and a reward system that rewards common purpose, rewards the way that people praise each other, and rewards mutual responsibility and accountability. So it's this idea of unanimity rule. So if everybody has to agree, that's a bit different from just having majority rule. And we put in loads of group work at Warwick, and we build it around not only the Sustainable Development Goals, but the grand challenges that are the kind of equivalent in America, even the UK grand challenges, so AI, clean growth. We have students building things like gesture recognition for sign language, and really amazing projects that they do. So we've had great success with this. We're growing female leaders. I really believe that we're one of the best places for women to do engineering in the UK because we want it to be. And just to recap what we've done, built an authentic task around purpose that's meaningful to a woman in engineering, reward in our assessment, accountability and transparency. So we reward people supporting each other and creating a collaborative atmosphere. We build momentum, so we make sure that it's not just lone female voices in groups. We put women together, and that's easier because actually we have far above the national average in terms of women in our engineering undergraduate degree. And we make sure that women have influence. So we also do some mentoring with female students. Of course, we do all of those things, but really we don't believe it's the responsibility of female students to change themselves in order to adapt and progress well in an engineering degree. We believe it's our responsibility, but it's the responsibility of everybody in a group to adapt the way that they work and to adapt the group to allow female voices to thrive. So that's what I do. That's a very quick overview. And yeah, handing back over to somebody else now.
Claire, that is it just resonates so much with me. Those that know me know that it's very personal to me, because I graduated with a degree in civil engineering umpteen years ago. I'm not saying how long, but quite a long time. And then I didn't become an engineer. So a lot of those strands resonate with me, and I'm sure with others. And it's very, very topical. So thank you both for your introductions. We're having some challenges with our third panelist, so I'm going to suggest that we move into the actual main body of this session, which is to look at some of these questions, if that's okay with both of you. The theme for our panel discussion, it centers around a more sustainable world will need more women engineers. So I have a few questions, and we've got quite a few coming through on the chat, which hopefully we'll be able to get to. But if I could start with the first question and ask you first, Ellie, to have a think about it. And the question is this: You're both winners of the Top 50 Women in Engineering Sustainability Awards this year. What do women bring to sustainability?
I mean, I think that's a great question, and the thing that I want to be super careful is about not over stereotyping about who women are or what women can or cannot do. And I think that's a really important sort of framing. But we also do know that women have been excluded systematically for most of history, in terms of creating the society that we want to build. And I think part of that exclusion has been to create a masculine view, or sort of a masculine view about what development is, what infrastructure is and should be, which is one of kind of extraction and domination. So we extract what we need from humans and from the earth, and we create whatever we want from it. That kind of view of engineering as being able to dominate nature, and also, I think, not to get too Marxist about it, but the workers who are producing it, that view has not led us down a good road and has led to the climate emergency. And so in a sort of feminist or something that a feminine or the kind of aspects of the world that are coded feminine, meaning connection to nature, care, what is an infrastructure of care. If those sorts of ideas can be brought in to the ways in which we think about producing infrastructure, then we will be able to be sustainable, and move away from this idea of ability or of our power to dominate. And I think whilst men can bring in that view, I don't think it's an exclusively like female worldview. But that women have been kind of socially trained to be able to do that, or to have more access to the kind of care. And so that's a kind of sort of meta academic answer, I'm aware. But the other thing I would say is that women have experience of being oppressed and ignored and dismissed. And so I think that creates a sort of sensitivity and a empathy with other oppressed groups, and so I think that's certainly something that women are able, generally from experience, to kind of bring a new perspective into. And also women's experience just isn't incorporated into design processes. So just imagine the discomfort around an engineering design table when you talk about sexual violence or sex even.
Yes, indeed.
It's not allowed in the conversation. So
yeah,
that's my sort of contribution there.
Okay. Claire. Claire, can you hear us?
Yeah, Ellie's really right that it's they can. Can you not hear me?
We can now.
Ellie, yeah, so what Ellie said is something I feel as well, that it's hard sometimes to not generalize. So one thing I try and talk about is that, that the women that are currently in engineering, perhaps they've already been attracted to engineering from the kind of way we teach it and the way we do it. But there are a whole host of men and women out there who are not applying for engineering degrees, and maybe they're all going to be attracted by a different kinds of engineering. And I really do think something about systems thinking, which there's a bit of chat about in the comments. So I teach systems thinking to my second years, to about 200 second years every year. And we're trying to find out whether women are more naturally inclined towards systems thinking, whether systems thinking can be taught. So whether you can take somebody who's not a natural systems thinker and make them a systems thinker, whether engineers are just naturally not predisposed to systems thinking. So all of these things, and there's actually loads of work going on in Cranfield about this as well that we're just hanging on the coattails of. And the results looks like that women who choose not to go into engineering, a lot of them are actually naturally good systems thinkers. And imagine the power that could have if those voices were added into the engineering profession. So if we had more systems thinkers, men and women, if we taught that in engineering undergraduate, then the problems that we'd be solving, we'd be better equipped to solve these sustainability issues.
Okay, thank you. We now have Valeska joining us. Can you hear us? Valeska. Your microphone is on. Wave at us if you can hear us. She's typing something in the chat, so I'm going to move on to the second question, and hopefully by then she'll be able to hear and join in with us. So the second question is, INWED's theme this year is Shaping the World. How do you think women can shape the world specifically? Let's start off with Claire this time.
How can women shape the world?
Big question.
Yeah, that is a big question. So again, I feel like I talk at this from one end of the scale. So I talk about female students and I talk about the people that I know. So one of the things that I had done a third year project in, or was about to do a third year project in for students, is about engineering your period. So looking at period poverty, looking at smart devices for periods, looking at software for periods, looking at things like pelvic floor trainers and breast pumps and all of the things that I'm sure could be better designed and affect a large proportion of the population. And shaping the world, we obviously have grand visions of everything we could do for poverty and everything we could do across the world, but there's also a lot in our local community that we can solve with engineering. So we have an amazing lecturer at our department, obviously a woman as well, called Chloe Agg, and she builds design projects around community projects. So she goes into schools, she reaches out to people in the local community and says, what projects have you got that we can work on? And our students are creating something which at the end I don't have to dispose of, like a lot of projects where I then have to get rid of the thing that they've made because they are moving on. But that can go into a school, or it can go somewhere and it can be used. And you know, if that's the thing that I'm seeing with 19 and 20-year-olds now, imagine that in the future when those women are going to be kind of in the world and able to choose the projects. So I think the key for me would be helping people to be kind of unrefrained by having to have some kind of corporate reward for the thing which motivates them. If we can somehow build a world where people can do projects because they care about them and not because of the reward that's financial, then that would be amazing. That's how women could shape the world.
Yeah, that really resonates. Ellie, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I just want to 100% agree with what Claire's saying, and my doctorate was in systems thinking and at the Systems Centre at Bristol University, and so I really resonate with this kind of idea about the interconnectedness of the world as being a skill set that is needed to be pushed up the kind of engineering, whatever it is, ladder, in order to be able to think more holistically about the types of interventions that we choose to make, and also understand that our technological solutions are part of a bigger system of society, and to start to understand how society will feed into and affect the technologies that we decide to create, and as well how those technologies push back and affect social experience. So I think that's a really interesting perspective, that you say that women tend to be better trained or more naturally inclined to systems thinking. Is super interesting. I would also say that when you said this question, I was wondering, well, which women are we talking about? The engineers, the women the women who've made it through to become trained and qualified in a position of power in a technical engineering project, or are we potentially right now? Could we think about all women who are the recipients and users of the technologies and infrastructures that we create? What is the role of participation? What is the role of speaking to and understanding women's experience? We can do that through the few women around the table who says, guess what, period is a thing, or guess what, I have caring responsibilities, or I've experienced sexual violence. But that's quite a difficult task for the 1 in 20 women around the table to kind of represent. And what if we now could start to do much more participatory approaches? What if we could value more the experience of women who are telling us what their priorities are? What if we valued, what if we got a promotion based on how many community members we had a cup of tea with, rather than how well did we model and make an assumption and produce a diagram and a calculation? So there's something about participation of women's experience within the design process that has a long way to go. And I think we can often think about that in developing country contexts, but it is just as real all around the world.
Yeah, it's very much a human concept, isn't it? And that's quite interesting, what you were saying towards the end about how we value things differently. And in my world, seeing as I'm not practicing engineer anymore, and I've moved over to sort of leadership and communication, these are the sorts of themes that come through. And what really annoys me is that people kind of talk about these things as soft skills, as if they're less important than some of the technical skills. And actually, as a holistic professional human being and member of the wider global community, these sorts of skills and thought practices are just as important. So I guess it's shifting and helping to educate people differently.
Yeah, and to put that in the curriculum and put that in promotion criteria.
Exactly. So the next question. A lot of people think that sustainability is only about climate change. So WES has also focused on the UN Sustainability Development Goals. SDG 5 is gender equality. How does gender equality contribute to sustainability? Claire.
Yeah, so I might just reiterate something that I think I've already said, actually, is that having more women in a group influences the outcome. So if we start with that, if we have equality of numbers, but even just equality of influence. So if we have 50-50 board membership, female men, but those women are all working part-time, so in reality, they add up to only 25%. That's not massively helpful. We need to have 50-50 influence, and maybe that isn't by having 50-50 in numbers. Okay, so we can explore this. We can think about diversity, inclusion, and gender equality, not so much about being as numbers and raw numbers, but actually translating that into influence and power and authority. And how we do that is the kind of the point of this goal, right? But it's about making sure that the opportunity is there for women to not have to change themselves in order to do that, in order to have a voice, but for the culture around them to change. And what we know is that if you have enough women, if you start to build momentum, then actually that happens. So as soon as you have enough people, you start to change the experience of the women that are there.
Yeah, Ellie.
Amazing. Yeah, agree. And I would also add, just from the gender and climate action work that I've been doing, well, one of the key underlying principles of that work, well, there's loads, but one of the key is that if we are going to create climate friendly technologies, then we have to, and we're going to kind of create technologies that influence climate sensitive behaviors, then it doesn't work if we have an assumption about what the behaviors and needs of that infrastructures are that is based around a male worldview. And we can see this particularly in cycling infrastructure, where I think 75% of cyclists in London, and that this number kind of is mirrored all across the world, are men. So the more we create cycling infrastructure that privileges kind of getting into the city and out of the city as quickly as possible, we have our cycle superhighways in London, that kind of privileges speed and aggressive styles of cycling because they're not segregated cycle lanes, then we are essentially creating sustainability infrastructure for one type of person and for one type of need. And we're never going to get to enough uptake of cycling because we have not incorporated a gender or justice lens on what are the needs of that. And so if we do if a scheme really wants to take seriously the needs of people to take low carbon or active transport modes, then we need to take gender justice seriously. And that requires us to understand, to do the work to understand the diverse needs, but also to prioritize it, to say actually it's important to us that everyone have access. There's also a huge BAME gap in cycling. It's a very white pursuit in the West. And so, you know, these are things that we can build into our infrastructure or take an awareness of.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just such a huge topic, and it permeates into every aspect of our lives. We have another guest on our panel, I think, hopefully this time. Can you hear us, Valeska?
Yeah.
Are you? Oh, yay!
Yeah, it's very Claire and Ellie for video bombing during their talks. Like it kept booting me out of the session for some reason.
Yeah. Well, you're here now. So
yeah, I had to download Chrome and restarted in Chrome for some reason. Anyway, yeah, sorry.
Brilliant. Okay, so I wonder if we can get your take on this question then. I don't know if you heard it, but let me repeat it again. So the question is, a lot of people think sustainability is only about climate change. So WES has also focused on the UN's Sustainability Development Goals. SDG 5 is gender equality. Mm-hmm. How does gender equality contribute to sustainability?
Well, okay. First of all, I have to apologise if someone's mentioned this before, but
no, you go ahead.
My take on it is that if you have gender equality, then that means that no one is precluded from believing that they can go into a career in engineering. And we need that sort of diversity of thought and diversity of approach to be able to solve these really complex problems. Mm. So the aspirations behind equality, not just with gender, but with people from different backgrounds, different social backgrounds, all of that feeds into the richness of thinking in terms of trying to approach these problems from different angles. And it gives you more creative solutions. It gives you solutions that are suited to a wider range of people, and that's probably why it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. So while we've got you, just in case we lose you again, I'm going to grab this opportunity and I'm going to come to you first with our next question. So many people are worried about the effects of humanity on the planet. What can we all do to be more sustainable?
I think the biggest thing is being open to change, because so if you have new solutions coming through, new technologies, engineers and scientists working around the world to develop alternatives to what we have, then being open to changing your thinking, changing your approaches, the way we go about our lives, so that it's not always situation normal. I think that's quite important. Being open to new advances and new ways of doing things.
Yeah, thank you, Claire.
I'm quite into the effective altruism movement. So it's a whole other thing where people basically trying to safeguard the future of humanity. So everything that they do, they have one of their metrics for success being about safeguarding the future. And it doesn't have to be an official reward for that. So you don't have to, it doesn't have to be part of your job. You can have that as your own value. And one of the things that I do with women that I mentor is talk about balanced scorecards, which a lot of you will have in your kind of corporate lifestyle, I assume. And I talk about how putting the future in there is a really important thing. So when you're making decisions yourself, and that doesn't have to be about just about shopping or anything like that, any decision that you're making, if one of your values is the future of humanity, then it can really impact how you live your life and how you live your career, because you can't separate out your professional self and your family self from your consumer self, right? You can't just have those as three separate people. It's all interlinked. So I very much recommend this effective altruism movement if you want to really challenge yourself and challenge your thinking about this.
I'm writing it down. Ellie?
For me, there are kind of three things. I think the first thing is that we're all human beings, and we're all people who have consumption patterns and who have an impact on the sustainability of our planet. So I think from a personal perspective, we need to reflect on what are we eating, where are we investing our pensions, how much are we choosing to fly, for what reasons, how do we want to travel? These kind of obvious things that we need to take some time and actually really reflect on personally. And then the second thing for me is around setting an example. We're all leaders in some part of our lives, whoever we are. Somebody is looking to us. And so how can we effectively advocate and kind of share the philosophies that we have previously have chosen to live by? And then finally, I kind of wanted to borrow from Renee Edo-Lodge, who wrote the book Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race. And her reflection when she said, when white people say to her, what can I do to help racism? She says, I don't know where your power is. I don't know who you have influence over. I don't know what decisions that you can make to make a difference. You do the work. So what I would say in terms of the sustainable futures, if we all think about where is our specific power to influence sustainability, who do we teach? Do we make decisions at a corporate level? Where do we have influence, and what can we do to kind of use our power appropriately? We can do that in terms of race and gender justice, but we can also do it in terms of climate change and sustainable futures.
Yeah, well said. I think it's a lot about personal responsibility, isn't it? And it's what we can control and what we can influence, and it's identifying that, and rather than looking outwardly all the time, is just sort of take some initiative. Yeah.
So I'm so impressed, like Claire and Ellie, your answers are so articulate.
Listen, I'm in the presence of 3 winners of the We 50, so we're already in fantastic company, and everybody has a unique perspective, which, although we can't see everybody in the audience, I'm sure they're all loving this. And if only we had much more time to carry on discussion. We still have a little bit of time, and we've got a lot of other questions that have come through on the chat. But I'm going to pick this one for starters, because it's quite generic, but I think would be quite fascinating for everybody to know the answer to. So the question is, what is your favorite part about being a female engineer? Who wants to answer that first?
I'll go.
Okay.
I'm drinking out of this mug at the moment, which says Rebel on it. And what I most enjoy about being a female engineer is the opportunity to kind of subvert things, to kind of put a little spanner in various works, and to enjoy that, not to do it in a way that's purposefully disruptive in a negative way, but to sort of, put different bits of sparkle in different places. And I think there is an opportunity, once you've dealt with the sort of the frustrations that come with being in a male-dominated environment, there is also opportunity to kind of there is some power in it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think. Sorry, Claire.
I was going to say my answer is so benign after that, but I spend a lot of my days playing with drones and robots. So that's what I enjoy about just being an engineer, really, let alone a female engineer.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar. I like pulling things apart. I like learning about how things work. But to follow on with what Ellie was saying, I like sometimes although if you're in a male-dominated environment, there are challenges that come with that, but there are also opportunities to be, I guess, a unique voice and to contribute a different perspective, or to come at it from, I guess, a perception of being a slight outsider can help in some respects. But yeah, I like sometimes being the someone who can contribute a different viewpoint. But it would be nicer if there were other voices in the room, though.
Yeah. So some of the themes that are coming through, which I'm sure you might have noticed in the chat, about, you know, women being more polite and we just communicate in a different way. So this is a personal passion of mine about how people generally communicate in unique ways. I don't think it's necessarily exclusively about genders, but what are your thoughts, just as a closing comment in this discussion, because I think this is something that everybody can relate to. Do you think women professionals speak up as much as they could do? Do you think that's an issue? Or, you know, what is there about authenticity? What are your thoughts on, you know, if you are the only female engineer in the room, how do you tackle that in terms of being seen or communicating?
So I can start.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, actually, this is a good example. So yeah, trying to make sure that you get your voice heard early, so that people know that you're there and that you have something to contribute. So yeah, trying to jump in and make a contribution so that you don't get, I guess, drowned out by other voices. But I think it's important to realize that you're in a room or you're in a conversation because you do have something valuable to contribute, and to force yourself to make that leap and contribute, and then it gets easier from there on in. What about you guys? What do you think?
I also think there's something about challenging yourself. It's so easy when you're surrounded by people who are negating your voice and are negating your opinion to also have that internally as well. I really believe in mentoring, and I really believe in having female coaches. And actually, the CEO of WES is an excellent person for giving advice. So you all need somebody like that in your life who is encouraging and who believes in you. And you know, sometimes when you can't believe in yourself and you think that everybody around you doesn't believe in you, just having somebody external who believes in you, who will build you up and who will tell you that your voice is important. Because as much as we can fight this and as much energy as we can put into it, sometimes we just need a friend who can help us out of it and build us up.
Absolutely. And there can be other men in the room as well. They don't have to all be women, but yeah, just getting allies.
That's a good point. Yeah, exactly.
I would 100% agree with that, and that was a similar point to what I was going to make. I was just imagining myself in one of those rooms, and you know, depends what mood you're in, whether how well you're kind of able to take it on that day. I think a key thing is about understanding the responsibility of the men in the room to stop being so exclusive, and so having these kind of honest personal conversations with people you trust, who are the men in the room, who can do the work and who can stand up and say, I actually think Dr. Cosgrave made that exact point 15 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Something like that. You can, you know, start to spot those things, and I think we can do that in a sort of a subtle way with the people we trust and who are our friends, and to kind of spread the news that you're struggling, that you need that. And I'd also then finally to say that, you know, some days we can't be bothered. We can't take it off. We know we're not going to get heard. I think it's okay that we don't have to behave perfectly and be heard and be brilliantly articulate and get our point. And really, finally, the director of that project saw what I was trying to say. Sometimes you know it's not going to land and you don't have the energy for it, and go and have a cup of tea.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Nourish you.
Can't agree with you more. It's I like to think of it like this. I think as engineers, problem solving is a key concept. So this whole communication conundrum, I think, is just about problem solving, and how do you reverse engineer it in terms of working out how you pick which conversations you're going to join in, or how you're going to get noticed in terms of visibility, networking, profile, all of those things. Sometimes it's just not the time to do it. You don't feel like it, so you just pick your moments. But the important thing is to advance and move forward and shape your style in your own authentic way as you go forward and take control of your career. So that's my take on it. Any final closing remarks from our fantastic panel on anything that we've talked about today?
Just the final thing that came to my mind thinking about that last thing is that actually I have found becoming a mentor incredibly rewarding in terms of my own development and my own understanding of the issues, because partly because I firstly recognized a lot of the issues, but I also and it made me feel kind of not alone, and secondly because it made me realize how much I really do know about what's going on. And when somebody else comes to you with a problem, you can be like, look, that would happen for this X, Y, and Z. You can kind of understand the system when you're not in it yourself, and it's not emotionally affecting you in the same way as it would if you were the center. So I think there's a great value in becoming a mentor as well as being mentored.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'd just say, like, so there's I really enjoyed the most satisfying part of my job, I think, is helping people develop their careers and seeing how they progress. And I've seen some really nice comments in the chat about other women who have nominated people for these sorts of awards and bringing people up with them, and I think that's fantastic. But thinking towards the future, I think that there are a lot of opportunities where, going back to, it might have been Ellie's comment about the power that you do have, or it might have been Claire, the power that you do have to change things, and just to urge people to think about whether they can take on positions of responsibility or leadership where they have a bit more power to change things on a wider scale, because the more we have of that sort of responsibility or that ability to make positive changes, I think the quicker these positive changes will come about. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, Claire.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick on something that's come up in the chat about experience of people who are other women who aren't as positive about women in engineering, because I don't want that comment to get lost. And I think that we firstly don't become that woman. So don't change yourself in order to progress, which is easier said than done. And to really think about what your values are, and always think about what your values are, so that when you're rewarding people in the future, and when you're looking for colleagues, and when you're doing anything which is downwards, reward the things that you think will make things better in your culture, in your company, but also have grace for those women who have had really terrible experiences. The way that they've had to flourish, the way that they've had to be to flourish. Have grace for that, and don't expect every woman to be your ally, in the same way you wouldn't expect every man to be. So we practice a lot of forgiveness, don't we, as women in engineering as well, because it costs so much energy to carry that much sadness with us all the time.
Yeah, I think let's leave it there. So much fantastic advice, and the chat continues, and I hope you can all see, we'll take some time to have a look at the positive comments that are coming through. Everyone's really enjoyed this session, and I think as a parting thought, I just want to reiterate, just don't be hard on yourselves. You just do the best that you can, and there's loads of support out there, and the days like this where we commemorate, you know, the winners and engineers in the world, it doesn't have to be just one day. It can be the little things that you do on a daily basis. And so all of the comments that all of you have made are incredibly valuable, and we just take from it what works for you and what resonates. So I want to just extend a huge thank you to all of you for participating. Despite some of the technical challenges, I know that everybody's enjoyed this session. And again, congratulations. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the session. Thank you.
Thanks so much for putting it together. Well done, everyone.
Bye, guys. Catch up with you later on in the chat. Okay, so we next have a keynote speaker coming up, but I think let's pause just for a couple of minutes for a comfort break, and then come back so that we can kick off again at 2:35. So if you want to grab a cup of tea or coffee, and then we will come back for the keynote speech for this afternoon. Okay, welcome back everybody, and we're now into our final formal part of the programme. But remember, even though the presentations have stopped, we still have some online chat where you can continue your discussions and your questions until about 4 o'clock this afternoon. And before I introduce our keynote speaker for today, I just want to put out a reminder about our social media. I hope that by the end of today, we will be trending at #1 for hashtag Shape the World and INWED 20. So please keep posting and sharing and celebrating all of our fantastic winners, and keep posting your questions as well. If you haven't had your handouts yet, remember to click on the tab and download those. So now I can see that we have our speaker getting ready to join us. Let me introduce our keynote speaker for this afternoon. Our speaker is Titi Oluyode. Titi holds an undergraduate degree in chemical engineering from the University of Lagos, Nigeria, and a master's degree in advanced chemical engineering, process systems engineering specialization from Imperial College London. She's currently a safety engineer at Siemens UK, providing safety assurance expertise for various engineering systems and major projects in the energy and transportation industries. Titi is passionate about promoting and changing the misconceptions about the engineering profession, and has worked with the Association of Black Engineers and also other initiatives which work towards making engineering more accessible and appealing to all. So without further ado, Titi, are you with us? I can see that your microphone is on and your slides are showing. If you want to say hello, we can check that you are ready to go. Bear with us, everybody, while we're just waiting to get Titi to join us. Well, I'm just looking through some of the comments in the chat. We have had so many this afternoon. It is really inspiring to look at some of these, and also to kind of see that these strands are resonating with a lot of people. And sometimes it's quite easy to think that the challenges are just faced by ourselves, but it's really helpful to see that a lot of people have some of the same issues or some ideas or best practices that we can share. So please keep scrolling through to see what's going on in the chat.
Hello.
Hi, Titi.
Right.
Welcome. Are you ready to begin your presentation?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to hand over to you, and we're all looking forward to this. So thank you.
Okay. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in, and congratulations to all the WE50 winners as well. It's an honor just listening to you. The panel session, I really enjoyed it, and I've been enjoying this celebration so far. So congratulations to all women in engineering. Happy International Women in Engineering Day. So just to talk about women's engineering society as well,
it's such an honor to speak at this pivotal role in the history of women in engineering for the past century. And just reading through the history of the Women's Engineering Society, it's been great to see the evolution, and just to also, there are challenges now, and WES is working so hard on the challenges as well. But it's so good while reading through the history of the society, that it's not the same problems that we're being faced at that time that we're facing now, and that's really good to see that there's been progress. So it's really interesting, and it's great to see lots of work being done in terms of mentoring. I know the panel, speaking at the panel, panelists before have talked about a lot on mentoring and how important it is for career development. There's lots of work also being done for students, and I particularly like as well the STEM returners, because that's a way that we can encourage diversity of thinking in the engineering profession as well. So it's great to see, of course, the way that what we're celebrating today, which is the International Women in Engineering Day. And though it started in 2014, it's grown in leaps and bounds in those 6 years, and it's great to see how it's evolved now into an international event. And I quite like bumping into Lottie as well on social media. Seeing pictures of Lottie, like I've got here on the slides, doing different things in engineering, whether it's working on site or just having a bit of 3D cake, I think is quite important. It's quite a good way, quite a fun way for us to sort of pass on that message to younger people that engineering is, for everybody. No matter what you look like, you can be an engineer. So that's really a great one to see. So the theme for this year is Shaping Our World. And of course, we've got the amazing winners, the 50 winners of sustainability. And it's great to see what a lot of work that's been done in that space. And just listening to the panelists as well, just, opened up my mind to see that this is something that, we've got a lot of work to be done, and that's so important. So when we talk about sustainability, I would basically say, are we thinking about the future whilst we live our lives now in the present? And we have this 17 Sustainable Development Goals that have been set out by the United Nations to be met by 2030. And all engineering disciplines are going to play a huge role in the realization of these goals. So yes, we need all hands on deck. And it's interesting to see, like we mentioned was mentioned previously, that SDG 5 is gender equality, and 10 as well is reduced inequality. So we really there's a lot of work to be done in the social aspects, and engineering will definitely contribute to that as well. So how did I get into engineering? Just a bit of my journey through engineering. So I fell in love with maths because my mom had a really great way of explaining mathematical principles to me. So there she is there with my dad, and my dad also encouraged me to have a curious mind, because every time I asked him a question when I was much younger, he would always say, oh, just go read more about it. He'll give me an answer, but then he'll say, just go read about it. So I love math a lot, and when it came to actually choosing a career, what to study in the university, I had the benefit of having my 2 elder sisters going on before me. So they are in the accounting and medical space. So I was able to make a choice to say, okay, I'm not going into that, because I love math, but I couldn't get my head around a balance sheet. And I saw the big medical books that were being read. I mean, doctors are amazing people, but I just opened the books and I didn't see any math in there. So I thought, okay, what do I do? What can I do that can that involves mathematics? And my parents encouraged me to look into a career in engineering. So I was able to speak as well to a friend of my sister's that told me a bit more about engineering. And so basically the take home from that story is that basically it took a village, like a support system around me that was able to, help me in making that choice in going into engineering. And just to say as well, like it's a lesson for me and hopefully for us all as well, that in any way that we can encourage people, just, you know, demystify engineering, break those misconceptions. It could be in just a chat you're having with someone, you know, just have that just have that conversation. You never know how it would change the direction of a young person's life. So whilst I was doing my undergraduate degree, I was able to go on to do an internship, and so that's me in my oversized coveralls, and it was quite interesting because I think that was the first place where the stark inequality or imbalance between male and female engineers was, you know, like stood out to me, because I was on an offshore platform, and I think out of 100 of people on the platform, at least there was just 2 of us that were female engineers, and that was, yeah, quite an interesting reality for me as well. So definitely there needs to be a lot more done in, you know, encouraging women into engineering. So after that, I graduated, went back to school, graduated, had a degree, my BSc degree in engineering, and I had a 1-year stint as a chemistry and math teacher. So I was quite glad to be teaching math, my favorite subject. And another thing that stood out to me on that 1 year was the fact that, you know, there were students that were learning chemistry, but they didn't realize what that could be used for later on, or what, you know, what the practicalities of that was. So as well, I was able to sort of encourage them and answer their questions about what a chemical engineering degree is all about, and based on what I knew, how that can be applied to solving the world's challenges as well. So after that, I moved to the UK for a master's degree at Imperial College London. And whilst I was doing my degree as well, there was an opportunity for me to work with the students of Battersea Park School to improve their progress and prospects via the charity or the organization called Team Up. So that was also quite interesting, and it was another opportunity for me to encourage people that, you know, you can do it and it's not as difficult as it looks. People have done it and it can be done. So also after that, I graduated from my MSc course and I started a career in safety engineering. So just to talk a bit about engineering and how that ties into sustainability. So as engineers, we know that we are solution providers, we're problem solvers, and there are lots of challenges that we've talked about today. So we've talked a lot about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And then there's also the net carbon zero goal that we're looking at. We're also we need to also look at the impact of the current coronavirus pandemic on these goals, and how can we, you know, make up for time or whatever it is. It's definitely going to have an impact in some way. So, for example, looking at the systems, something we're looking at now is things like decarbonizing our transportation systems. How can we look at alternative fuel sources for our trains, and how to reduce air pollution, and even for our new sources of energy, renewable sources of energy, we're looking at how to capture them, how to store them, how to make our sources of electricity more decarbonized. And also we're getting a lot of data based on new technologies that we've got now. So how can we use that data to further improve our engineering systems? And not just the systems, we've got processes as well. How can we make those processes more sustainable? Our maintenance processes, our construction processes, and all of that. So there's a whole raft of challenges that we need to solve and are being solved already. So it's interesting to see the way that we can apply engineering into different spheres of our lives, and it does affect every sphere of our life, really. So when we talk about sustainability, there are 3 principles that we can look at it from. That's people in the society, the environment, that's our planet, and also the economy. How are we making sure that in some way or form, we're able to still make some profit and continue business, really. So when we talk about safety engineering and how that ties into sustainability, we're looking at the risks of engineering systems, making sure that they're as low as can be as possible. So in terms of how that relates to the principles of sustainability, we know that we can reduce the risks and protect people. We want to make sure that people are always protected, whether it's where they work or what surrounds them or what industries are around their home. We want to make sure that, you know, they're always protected. In terms of the environment as well, we've got, anytime we have an accident, no matter what industry that comes from, we can have adverse effects on the environment, you know, on harmful material that's been included into the environment. And so we need to protect the environment. We need to eliminate wastage. We need to eliminate or reduce emissions as much as possible. And there's also the, you know, economic cost, the economic aspect of safety engineering as well. We want to manage risks in a cost-effective manner. Now, a lot of times we might look at cost as safety engineering as an added cost, but as has been mentioned by Dr. Trevor Klett, who is one of the founding fathers of process safety, it's not just a matter of financial cost as well. There's a lot of, there can be cost in terms of reputation. So that's something that we should always be quite mindful of. And this also safety is also important in every stage of engineering, from concept through to design, operations, whether we're retrofitting and also going on into decommissioning our engineering systems. So how do we normally do this? We do this through risk assessments, verification and validation of engineering requirements, making sure that engineering projects are adhering to the relevant standards that we need, that are specific to that industry. And then we can also, you know, use data to ensure that we are predicting reliability and recommending the appropriate maintenance methods. So moving into proactive and predictive maintenance methods as opposed to routine or reactive maintenance. And we also do that through another tool that we use is workshops. So for example, this is one of the workshops that I've attended and contributed to. And here we're facilitating discussions amongst various discipline engineers to come up with the safest, the most operable and sustainable and cost-effective engineering solutions. It's an important activity, and we definitely need the right mix of people to solve these engineering challenges innovatively. And so one thing that we definitely need to do there is diversity of people as well. The more more diverse thoughts we have coming in to an engineering process or a hazard analysis activity, the better solutions we can come up with. And so through work as well, we've done some initiatives whereby we're able to work with engineering days, like open up our doors to students and talk to them about different things that engineers can do, how we run our projects and things like that. And the feedback is always amazing. The students come up with, oh, I didn't know engineers could do this, or I didn't know an engineer's work could be so interesting, or I didn't know, engineers could do things like this. So it's always important to open up the minds of students to make sure that, they know that these things are possible. So one of the things that I've done as well, apart from working as a safety engineer, is to volunteer in the WFEO and Young Members Committee of IChemE Award, where we worked together to run a competition, where we ran a competition for early career engineers around the world. And basically what we're trying to do is to highlight the work of young engineers in the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals space. So it was quite interesting, and I was privileged to read through some of the entries and judge them as well. So it's quite interesting to see winning entries. The winning entry was on fast fashion, sustainability in fast fashion by Ada Rafat, and that was really good. It was a really good entry, just talking about how we can reuse textile dyes and all of that. There were so many other highly commended entries on maternal mortality, on battery recycling, deforestation, all sorts of clean water access. It was quite interesting to see that, people in their early careers were working on amazing things in this space. And we've now gone on to set up the Global Engineering Futures, who will be doing a lot of more work on that in that space and working on exchanging ideas across continents on the Sustainable Development Goals. So that's a great one. The other thing is, as a Queen Elizabeth Prize ambassador as well. Well, we Hello? Can anybody hear me?
We can hear you now. So if you just want to go over the last bit, just in case we missed it.
All right. Okay. Sorry about that. I just got a thing saying, oh.
TT, your audio's gone again. So whatever you did before to unmute it, give that another go. Right, we seem to be having some technical issues. We're trying to get the audio back. Sorry for that, guys. TT, are you back?
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, brilliant. We can hear you. I think everybody's mic suddenly went off. But sorry for the radio silence. We'll let you carry on.
No worries, that's fine. So I was just talking about the Queen Elizabeth Prize as well, which was won by in 2019 by the innovators of GPS. And it was interesting to note that aside from the use of GPS for our personal navigation and from point A to point B, there's a lot of there's a lot more like use for it in terms of sustainability as well, in precision farming, in humanitarian aid drops, and even for us to find the plastics in the ocean so that we can clean them up. So it's quite interesting to see how engineering has such a global impact and different uses. That's been quite interesting as well. I've also had the opportunity to review engineering for people design challenges for Engineers Without Borders. And why I quite like this work is because it provides opportunity for students in first year or second year to design for challenges in a given context. So to design for, they're told about a particular place, and they are then, told, okay, what can you design to help with the fuel access problems that they have, or the clean water access that they've got there, or the sanitation challenges that they've got as well. So it's quite interesting. And I think what it does is to promote the understanding of how engineering is not just about equations, but it does have human and social impact. And I think that's part of what Dr. Claire Lucas mentioned whilst on the panel. Not just designing things that you're going to chuck away after the year is over, but actually designing for people and seeing the smiles of people, or seeing how that's implemented by people in a certain place is so important. So that's some interesting work that I've been involved in that has got global impact. So like I mentioned before, SDG 10 is about reducing inequalities, and some of the work that I do in that space is as a board member for the Association for Black and Minority Engineers. And so this is based on a just to give a bit of context, we've realized from data that we've got 25% of the engineering university graduates are from Black and minority ethnic backgrounds, but we've got only 7.8% of the UK engineers are from BME origin. And so it's quite interesting to note that and understand why is that leakage coming from, and what can we do to support that. And that's what AFB has been doing for over 12 years now. And so one of the programs includes a project called Transition that's run at different universities. And so what it is effectively is a series of workshops to prepare students for the world of work. So we get them into mock interviews like I'm doing here and providing some feedback. So I'm writing down some feedback that I will give to the student later on after the interview is over. We've got things like CV reviews, mock assessment centers, and it's quite interesting to see, when they then have that interaction with us, they're able to come out of themselves and see that there are things that they can work on. And of course, since it's a mock interview, they can do that before. It's a good way to prepare prior to getting into their actual interviews. We've also got real projects where we have like knowledge exchange between professionals and students on relevant topics. So we've had seminars on safety, finance, how to start a consultancy business, and even, of course, based on what we've got at the moment, COVID-19, there was also a talk on that, just talking with a company that is working on creating vaccines and antigens in that space as well. So yes, that's really been, there are a lot of other projects that are going on as well for younger students, making engineering hot, and we've also got a conference that is coming up next year. And in order to help provide guidance on how to support the BME community more, we've got this action plan that has been put in place that's basically steps that we can all look into, and just, even as individuals and as companies as well. So the first step is for us to accept the facts about the disparity that we've got racially, and then educate ourselves, and then create a strategy and a safe space, and remain accountable to those strategies that we've created. So of course, if you need any more information on that, you can always contact AFB UK. And also another thing that AFB UK has done is to give me the chance personally to give me a chance to see lots of engineering leaders, women doing amazing stuff in the engineering space. So we've got the co-founder, Dr. Nike Folayan, who's done amazing stuff in the telecommunications engineering space. She recently also gave a webinar on debunking 5G myths, and that came at a really great time when we had lots of rumors flying about how 5G is related to the current coronavirus pandemic. We've also got Myrtle Dawes, that's doing amazing work in the energy space. She's an industry leader in the energy space as well. We've got Yewande Akinola, who, apart from doing great work in innovation and design in design engineering in the construction space, she's also done some work on TV, presenting engineering to the wider mainstream TV media as well. We've got Ronnie Savage, who's done some, who started off her own business and has been running off her own consulting firm for over 10 years now. And she also appeared on the Apprentice TV show where she was giving Lord Sugar some business advice last year. So that was really amazing for me to see. And we've got Dr. Ozak Esu, who's an award-winning engineer. She's also won the IET Young Women in Engineering Award previously. She's a leader in smart buildings construction space, and she also was involved in the construction of a STEM education center in Malawi recently. So this is just a fraction of the amazing women that I've come across in my engineering journey. I've come across a lot of engineering women in engineering that are doing amazing things, referring me for opportunities and just working together and just giving me advice and working together to ensure that we all move ahead together. So that's really been a great experience for me as well. So final thoughts. I mean, I might be preaching to the choir here, but it's absolutely key that we have diversity. It's important for us to have diversity of people in order to get sustainable solutions for our world right now and even for the future. I mean, if you still need convincing, please take a look at the picture on the right here. I mean, yes, a picture is worth 1,000 words, they say. And I mean, Dr. Claire Lucas and Dr. Ellie Cosgrave have also spoken so well and given so many examples of challenges that are faced in design that affect women way more than, men, just because it's been designed for women, whether it's in design or teaching as well. And even just reading through the book Invisible Women, I think a lot of people mentioned it in the chat already. One thing that stood out to me is that one of the many examples that she gave that the author gave in that book is that most of the common fitness monitors underestimate steps underestimate our activity whilst we're doing things like housework, which, to be fair, women do a lot more, by up to 74%, and fails to account for movement while we're doing activities such as pushing a pram. So I think that when we have, diversity of thought, more women, more people from diverse backgrounds, more Black people where we should have them, we have that opportunity to create more sustainable solutions. Now, it's easy for us to get overwhelmed. I do sometimes, but I found these really great quotes, and I think these are like a good way for us to keep doing what we're doing. And so, we can make a difference, and we need more people with engineering mindsets to make a difference. So as is mentioned here by Dame Goodall, what difference will we be able to make? That's the question we should try to ask ourselves every day, and just see how we can do it, whether it's in the boardrooms or with encouraging people into STEM, or just one-on-one talks as well. I think that really helps. And yeah, I just again would like to congratulate all the women here. We're doing amazing work, and thank you as well to the allies who are working to bring in more women into engineering. I think we're doing amazing work, and it's great for us to have an opportunity for us to celebrate with one another. Thank you. Can anybody hear me? Can anybody hear me?
Engineering is inventing,
Exciting.
Enlightening.
Electrifying.
Energizing.
Fascinating.
it's about making things, creating things, putting things together.
Engineering is cooperation.
People.
Collaborative.
Working together.
Inclusive.
Diverse.
For everyone.
Different.
Activity.
Engineering is epic.
Fun. Badass.
Original.
Awesome.
Engineering is technical.
Solution focused.
An art.
Creativity.
Curious.
Vision.
Innovative. Influential.
Inspiring.
International.
Progress.
Opportunities.
Engineering is everything.
Engineering is our future.
Engineering is everywhere.
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 Me now. TT, you still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, brilliant. You can hear me. Can I get you to share your camera? I'm so sorry about this, guys. We had some technical issues and my mic had gone off. I want to see if we can get you back in for some Q&As. So as long as you can hear me, I'm going to put a couple of questions to you. And it was really interesting to hear about the family encouragement that you had and the inspirational role models and everybody that went before you. And obviously that made a big difference. For me, it was kind of the opposite. For me, the inspirational person was my physics teacher. And if it hadn't been for her, I don't think I would have gone on to do an engineering degree. But what are your thoughts on for those people who don't have those inspirational figures or people that can understand what engineering can offer or encourage them? How do we deal with that issue? TT, your mic is showing that it's on, and I'm just wondering if you can join in with us. Or maybe put it in the chat and then I can share that with everyone. It might be an opportunity for the rest of the audience to just share with us what they think while we're waiting for TT to join us. Yep, physics teacher as well. He was very inspirational. Nobody with engineering or science background in family, quite a common theme coming up. What about how do you get the message out there? Because this is the conundrum that we're trying to solve in terms of educating the wider audience and getting to the talent pipeline a lot earlier on when our newer colleagues are still at school. How do we do this in a maybe an innovative way that hasn't been tried before? Yeah, promoting engineering in media really works. So we live in the digital age, social media.
Yeah. The
common thing that keeps coming up though in this thread is teaching. Hello, TT.
Okay, hi.
Brilliant. We can see you. Right, really want to get you in on this. So we just started a discussion in the chat, and I don't know if you heard my earlier question, and it was just picking up on the comments that you made about your parents and your sisters, the topics that they'd chosen, and clearly that had an impact on you. My question is, what do we do when we don't have those role models in our lives? How can we encourage people to join this profession, or to take an interest even at an early stage?
So I think, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. So yeah, definitely. I think that's why I really enjoy going out and talking to students about different things. And I try to encourage them as well, not just about the industries that I've worked in, but also just things that I learn about. I think you mentioned something about teachers, of course, very important, very important. I've also heard stories of people that their teachers have, said to them, oh, you can't do this. And I think it's really important that we have that opportunity to talk to, when we can, to talk to teachers as well, to encourage people to go into engineering. I think I came across some stats as well that mentioned about how many teachers didn't feel confident enough, and even parents as well didn't feel confident enough to tell their children, tell the people around them or the people that they influence about engineering. So I think that's where we as engineers, and that's why I really like work that's been done in like the media space as well, going into schools, that really talk to people.
So you're just cutting out there the last bit after you talked about media. Hopefully we'll get you back again and that you can hear me. And I hope that you can, because I want to ask you a few more questions. Let me know if you can hear me, TT. While we're waiting, the question I was going to ask TT was whether after joining in on today's session, if it's been something that we've been thinking about, but we haven't really done much about it. What are the first steps that we can take towards sustainability? If it is just one small step, what do you guys think? What advice would you give us while we wait for TT to come back and join us? Pop your comments in the chat. I'm just scrolling through to pick up on some of the comments that came through on the last question about choosing to do engineering. And I think a common thing is not really knowing that engineering is everything, and not knowing exactly what it means. And, we can access it in many different ways. Yeah, lots of comments are coming through on the last question. I think it's a real shame, but if we can't get TT back to do the Q&A, maybe we can continue this in the chat, in the networking later on. So unless I can get her to come in and join us and continue the Q&A to follow on from this really interesting presentation, in a moment I'm going to invite our CEO, Elizabeth, to come in and share some final words. And technology. We have TT. Yes, I can. Right, I want to get in one more question before we lose you again. I was just about to wrap up, but I'm really pleased that you've joined us. So we talked about role models and reaching out through media and schools, etc. And I posted a question to come in through the chat about following on from your presentation, if we could take one step towards sustainability and you had a message to share with the audience today, what would that comment be, or what would that suggestion be to just begin?
So I think I think someone's mentioned that as well. Like a lot of times when you think about sustainability, you think, climate change, or so if you're not working in that space, you think, oh, maybe I'm, contributing to the problem, rather than, helping the problem. But I think in our individual behaviors, in our individual, just looking at things that we can do as just speak something simple. I'm an advocate of keeping things very simple. So just identify one thing that you can do in your space right now. So whether it's helping, women feel heard in, even if it's just in a meeting, or, like the panelists mentioned as well, sometimes there's a lot of mansplaining, or sometimes you just don't feel, sometimes you don't even feel that confident to talk about it. But, sometimes you get people in meetings that, ask questions that are very collaborative and say, oh, what do you think about this? And they encourage you to speak up, things like that. I think that in itself is, so you might not be helping to, get to net carbon zero or something like that, in a big way, but you're helping to reduce inequalities. You're helping to improve gender equality. And who knows, maybe, that would be, that would help one woman to continue on in engineering and not just get out of the pipeline. I mean, as well, I came across that was posted by STEMazing, and what was written, one of the comments was the reason why a girl didn't want to go into engineering was because her mom said it was too hard or it was too boring. So we never know the chain effect that we're having, people, even the next generation. And, that's pretty much what sustainability is all about.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You don't know the interaction that you're going to have with somebody, the impact that that's going to have. I mentioned earlier, it was one conversation with my physics teacher, which then had a huge impact on me deciding to go to university and study engineering. And I don't think she will ever know that, because I didn't get a chance to go back and tell her. We lost touch. But it's just about being conscious of speaking up or raising comments or issues, isn't it? You're right. You don't have to change the world in a day, but it's just consciously taking a step towards it. So following on from that, what do you think about whether there's a relationship between sustainability and social equality? Do you think that they're in conflict, or can they sort of exist together?
No, definitely. I think that sustainability, for things to be sustainable, right, there has to be equality, whether it's across race or social equality, or even gender as well. It's quite important for us to have that equality, because when we don't have equality, and we wouldn't know about that unless we have some sort of diversity. Because when we talk about sustainability, we are saying, are we looking at how are we living now that would affect how the world will be in future? So if we just say, oh, social inequality is something that, maybe doesn't really affect me, I can go to work, I can come back, and that's fine, and that comes a lot of times when we're in our own echo chamber, or when we're just, looking at, and it's so easy for you to get into that. Sometimes you might not even know the other projects that are going on in your company if you're facing, looking at one project as well. So it's very easy for us to get in that space. So it's really important as well for us to keep being intentional about learning about other things, learning about how, things affect people differently as well, whether it's social or in gender or race, that's really important. And I think that's the only way we're going to get to true sustainability as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. And that last picture that you put up on the slide with the walkway, and not being wide enough, I think we've all seen it in all different guises, and you just think, for me, it's bathrooms in hotels, and you think, who designed this? Because there's nowhere to put anything, and it's simple things, everyday things like that, and you think, obviously people don't have a wider perspective when it comes to design, when it comes to interacting with all sorts of issues, and you mentioned Invisible Women, so that's a book that many of us have read, and funnily enough, the WES London cluster has got that as their first book to read as part of the newly launched book club. So the aspects of the themes coming through that are relevant to all of us. If you could leave us with one final thought, that you didn't cover in your presentation, or you want to sort of expand more, what would that be?
So I think it's that we should keep being, we should be open-minded and just keep thinking, and just not, let's not keep just looking at at the world as, as it affects us, because the world affects us in different ways, whether we like it or not. It's just what it is. It's just the way the system is set up. So for example, like you mentioned, you might walk into a bathroom and think, oh my goodness, who did this? For me, sometimes it's kitchens. I'm like, okay, no, clearly I like food a lot. So clearly nobody, was thinking about cooking in this kitchen, isn't it? So, it's quite important for us to sort of to have that breadth of knowledge, and we might not necessarily have a breadth of experiences because we only have one life, right? But if we have that breadth of knowledge, so always, I personally love to read a lot. So read a lot, or just expose ourselves to different things to show, and then maybe we just would get to understand these issues of social inequality, race inequality, or gender inequality as well. I think that's important. So whatever type of media that you like to consume, I'll just say expose yourself to way more than you currently. Challenge yourself to keep, exposing yourself to a lot of things, and maybe you just would understand more issues as time goes on. I know that's personally what I'm doing, and that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I agree, and that resonates with me as well. Challenge and lifelong learning. So I think that's a really positive place to leave it now, because hopefully you're still with us, but your screen is frozen. So I'm hoping that you can hear us, and I want to extend our thanks for being our keynote speaker this afternoon. Lots of lovely comments coming through, and I'm sure people have more questions to ask you and interact with you in the chat. I'm now going to invite Elizabeth to come in with some closing remarks for this fantastic session. Thank you, Titi. Enjoy the rest of the session and the networking afterwards, everybody. So I'm going to sign off and invite Elizabeth to come in and close the events for today before we go into the networking. Elizabeth, are you ready? While we do that, please scroll through the chat and interact with people in terms of the comments they're making. And remember, social media, get us trending to #1 later on today.
Hello there, can you hear me? Can you see me? Excellent. It's so lovely to be here with you all. We've done really well. I have this lovely app called Talk Walker, which is telling me how much reach we've got today. And as at 3 o'clock, we had 48.1 million. Well done. Thank you for sharing. Do carry on. And on Twitter, we are around about 5th, but we're behind Boris Johnson and the sad death of a jockey and the pubs opening. So I'm not surprised that we're a little bit behind there. But do keep tweeting and sharing your posts for INWED and for Shape the World. And we are, as I said, we are 5th. I was just so inspired by TT and what she had to say, and the fact also that she trained in Nigeria and came to Britain, and that can't be easy moving countries from when you grow up to come and be an engineer here, where things may be different, but the engineering we hope is the same. I'm really, really pleased that we've had such a great day. Thank you, obviously, to our sponsors, who are Boeing, Dialogue Semiconductors, the ECITB, GCHQ, the Institute of Refrigeration, Mercedes-AMG Petronas, the NSIRC, OPITO, the Royal Academy of Engineering, the Royal Air Force, Sonodix, V12 Footwear, and Wiley. And thanks also to the UK Association of Professional Engineers for their donation to support the WES trophies. I'm reminded that I forgot to tell you earlier, but I'm telling you now, that we have received a legacy of Verena Holmes's diaries. She was the first trained engineer to be a president of the Women's Engineering Society. And we are looking for people who would like to transcribe her diaries. We've had them digitized. We're trying to see if we can decipher her handwriting and get them written into TypeScript, which we would like to have done by the middle of August. And if you would like to do that and get involved, then please email centenary@wes.org.uk, and that's centenary@wes.org.uk, to see if you can help transcribe that. We've already transcribed some of her letters, and she's been very fascinating about some of the goings on in the early part of WES. I would also like to say thank you very much to our hosts, Alex Knight and Jay Surtee, who I think have fielded the questions and some of our technical difficulties really well. I want to say thank you also to our WES President, Dawn Childs, who is the UK Change Director for National Grid UK. To Sally Sudworth, not only for being head judge of the WE50, but also for her amazing and inspiring discussion on achieving net carbon zero. And if you want to be involved with the WES Climate Emergency Group, email we50@wes.org.uk, and I'll make sure that you're put in touch with Sally. I want to say thank you as well to the We50 winners, 50 awesome women who are contributing to sustainability, shaping the world, and also giving their time to support other women in STEM and stability. Of the many, many hundreds of nominations that we had, it was these women's ability to not only do some fantastic work in sustainability, but also to raise up their sisters in STEM and in sustainability that really put them above the rest of the nominations. Thank you to our lovely panelists. I love a systems thinker. I studied systems thinking at the Open University in 2004. I thought it was about network systems and discovered it was so much more than that, and it changed my life. And I now have a master's in systems thinking in practice. And I think that whole contribution of women to sustainability and how we think in different perspectives, we think holistically, we go at things from a different direction, really, really has helped. I also want to say a huge thank you to our keynote speaker, Titi Goliaidi. What a fantastic and inspirational woman, working in safety for Siemens UK, also contributing to sustainability, also working with the Association for Black Engineers and inspiring women and girls around the world to become engineers. It's a truly wonderful speech, and thank you so much for giving up your time. Finally, I want to say thank you to the WES team, particularly to Joe Weaver, who has managed our technology and our social media for today and the last few weeks. And I know that this has not been the easiest project, but it's been due to her enthusiasm and commitment and determination to get this right that we've absolutely managed to have a lovely webinar today, despite the technical difficulties. So thank you very much to her. And also many, many thanks to you all, to everyone for coming, everyone for enjoying the day with us and for continuing to tweet, and also for continuing to be inspiring women and men in engineering who want to raise up other women in engineering. You are all amazing. You are shaping the world and contributing to sustainability. We will be keeping the webinar open till 4 for the chat if you want to continue to network. Nice to see some conversations still going on about people realizing where everyone else is and how they can link up. And just as a reminder, if you're interested in working on the Verena Holmes diaries, please email centenary@wes.org.uk. And if you're interested in joining Sally Sudworth's Climate Emergency Group, then that's we50@wes.org.uk. And I think those bongs you can hear are people emailing the We50 account, which I managed to say, please, can I be in the Climate Emergency Group? It's been an absolute pleasure having you all here. And thank you for celebrating International Women in Engineering Day.